cheap, thankless viewers like you. For more, keep checking theonion.com.
Free Talk Live. It is Free Talk Live, and you're invited, as always, to join us here. If you want, you can take control of the airwaves, bring up whatever is on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio with you tonight, you've got Ian,
Bonnie,
and Aria.
And, of course, you can bring up anything. Again, that is the point of the program. We, as always, bring things that you might find interesting to discuss here. And man, there's always just so much crazy stuff in the news these days. I remember a time, I don't know, before COVID, when there were some nights where it's just like, I couldn't find anything to talk about, and I had to go like dig into old show prep that I'd had from weeks past. And now I've got the opposite problem where I'm so loaded with things to talk about. I've found myself going through my older stuff and cutting out all the things, half the things we never got to, because, well, I mean, I wish we could talk about a lot of this stuff that's going on, but there's just so much, and so much of it, sadly, is just so bad. There's just the good news just isn't happening that often. Now you've got more crackdowns happening. Of course, we've been covering what's happening in Sydney with the military being rolled out to enforce COVID rules.
Helicopters and soldiers now.
Yep. Plus, you've got now a new bill that's being filed in Washington, D.C. And normally, I don't really get concerned about bills because, there's a ton of bills that get filed. But
sure.
This one is particularly to regulate digital assets. Ooh. And it's sort of
It's an impossible task.
It is. That doesn't mean they won't try their best.
Sure.
And, ruin people's businesses in the process.
And their lives.
But interestingly, it comes from a congressperson who has no, opinions previously about cryptocurrency. He hasn't been one of the people that's been sort of in the fray talking about crypto, but all of a sudden he introduces this wide-cutting crypto regulation bill. Some people are saying that he's just doing it on behalf of basically the Federal Reserve.
Seems likely.
Yeah,
probably most of the politicians that we have in Congress are just doing things because the Federal Reserve wants them to.
There is, a little bit of good news out there. For instance, there's I guess, Huntington Beach, California, which, of course, California is one of the highest regulated COVID regulations, crackdown kind of places. There's actually a restaurant that's disallowing vaccinated people.
Ooh.
So you have to be unvaccinated if you want to eat at this particular restaurant, as you might imagine.
That was also true of a gym. I think they also...
Really?
In Canada.
It was in Canada.
I think we covered it, Ian.
Okay.
Like us three.
So much news.
There
it's
is.
Hard to
It still makes me wonder, how can they even prove that they're unvaccinated?
Well, I think the whole point is to just upset the vaccine freaks out there so much that they won't even come in. Because obviously you couldn't prove that you're unvaccinated.
Yeah, and then the vaccinated will be like, I'm probably around all these unvaccinated people.
Although I did see a post on, I don't remember what the social media, must have been Twitter or something today, which was allegedly a pro-vaccine person celebrating that they can now carry COVID because they want to infect the unvaccinated people with COVID. So they're happy.
I would call them psychopathic, but I don't think COVID is particularly a threat to anyone or to most people. So if you want to expose me to COVID, have at it.
No biggie. The White House, according to the New York Times, is now paying, I would imagine, big bucks to hire people like Ellie Zeiler, who is a 17-year-old TikTok creator with over 10 million followers, by the way.
I was wondering why I never heard of this person.
Yeah, well, are you on TikTok?
I am not.
Are you on TikTok?
No, but I've never heard of her either.
Yeah, I'm not on TikTok. I did try it out once a couple years ago because it was this big deal, right? Like, oh, everybody's moving to TikTok. The people are leaving Facebook. Got to try TikTok.
I only went off because I was just too addicted to it. Like, you can just sit there for so long watching it. Like, a lot of it is dumb, but some of it's just like house hacks, makeup hacks, recipes, and it can be kind of addicting to watch because it's like 30-second clips or whatever.
Yeah, I found some entertaining stuff there. Like, there was this truck driver that told jokes, and he was pretty funny. But ultimately, yeah, I uninstalled it shortly after trying it out.
My favorite is a Southern Grandma parody called Nanny Ma.
You showed me that one. That was pretty entertaining. So Ellie Zeiler, she has 10 million followers, received an email, according to the New York Times, thanks to archive.ph, back in June from Village Marketing, an influencer marketing agency, because that's a thing now. It said it was reaching out on behalf of another party, the White House. Would she, a high school senior who usually posts short fashion and lifestyle videos, be willing, the agency wondered, to participate in a White House-backed campaign encouraging her audience to get vaccinated against the coronavirus? Quote, there's a massive...
Propaganda.
Yep. There's a massive need to grow awareness within the 12 to 18 age range, wrote the marketer to her email. Quote, we're moving fast and have only a few available slots to fill, so please let us know ASAP.
Oh, that's not true.
Yeah, that sounds like one of those like fake email scams.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like, oh, I got a lot of people lining up to buy my house, so you better buy it quickly if you want it.
Yeah, but I imagine it works on a teenager who wants more attention, or in this case, probably they're. I mean, I don't know. She's got 10 million viewers. She's probably had deals before, right? Like,
she's bound to be making some amount of money off of this.
So she agreed, joining a broad personality-driven campaign to confront an increasingly urgent challenge in the fight against the pandemic.
See, it shouldn't be personality-driven. That's sort of the issue, and the White House, by doing this, is just feeding into it. Right? It shouldn't be about, the personality of Donald Trump, or the personality of Dr. Fauci, or the personality of this 17-year-old high schooler.
Or the personality of Hitler.
It should be about science, not personality.
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if most Americans really care about science. I mean,
I'm sure they don't even know what science is. They think that if they believe it, then it's science. And that's not what science is.
Right. And what the government is saying is science is also not what science is.
No. Anyone who's saying the science is settled
doesn't know what science is, because it doesn't get settled, because it's a constant process of testing people's theories and breaking them down and proving them wrong and trying to find out what the truth is, right?
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of Americans kind of are followers, right? They will do what someone they respect tells them. If they don't
sadly.
Right. And if they don't respect politicians, and they shouldn't, but there sadly are people who do respect politicians, then they probably respect people in the entertainment world, like, Brad Pitt or whoever, right?
Ariana Grande.
Or in this case, Ellie Zeiler, the 17-year-old TikTok creator with 10 million followers. Now, we've read stories before about these so-called influencers and how they're not as big as they seem to be. Like, it doesn't hurt to have 10 million followers, but when you say, hey, buy my new t-shirt, how many shirts are they really selling? How many, so how influential are they really? Just because they have all these followers, what percentage of your 10 million followers actually watching what you put out, and what percentage of those are willing to actually do what you suggest?
Those are good questions. I imagine it's lower, if you have
it's lower than they want you to believe.
Sure.
That's for sure. So she's joined this campaign to vaccinate the youthful masses who have the lowest inoculation rates of any eligible age group in the United States.
Which is perfectly fine, because they're least likely to get hospitalized out of anyone in the United States.
Right, but yet the marketing group says there's a massive need to grow awareness within the 12 to 18 range.
Brainwash them young.
I feel like if Ariana Grande already did a song about getting vaccinated,
and she did.
And
did she?
Oh yeah, that's why I mentioned her.
We played it on the air.
It was so cringy.
It wasn't just a song; it was a highly produced, choreographed music video, and she did it with some. What was it? This overweight gentleman.
Jeremy Corden. I think.
Somebody. No, that's the guy from Goldback. But
well, he has
Corden
that kind
was
of a
his
name.
last name, I think.
I forget. He does like the car
show.
karaoke things. Yeah.
He does one of those late night TV shows. I don't know his name, but anyway, they were like singing a song. It was a takeoff of like a Broadway musical song that they'd redone the lyrics for, and it was all about getting back outside again. And they would literally like say thanks to Anthony Fauci and like
hold up a picture of his face.
Yeah, they have like a giant banner with his face on it.
But they're still having
weird
trouble getting 12 to 18-year-olds to take the vaccine.
Well,
it
they
might
don't
be
watch
because
TV.
of crap like that.
603-283-6160. If you want to weigh in here, you can bring up what you want. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and of course, you can join us here. All you got to do is dial in on the number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about the propaganda that is being pumped out on places like TikTok, Twitch, apparently, YouTube. The White House has enlisted over 50 of these so-called influencers on these different platforms out there that are attractive to young people, right? Twitch is a video game streaming platform primarily, although we have a channel there.
If I'm watching someone do a gaming stream, can't think of the last time I watched a gaming stream, but if I was watching one and someone was like, oh, by the way, let me convince you to get the vaccine or whatever, however subtle they were about it, I'm never watching that idiot again. That's not why I watch.
Sure.
Entertaining things.
I actually had that happen to me, not with a gaming thing, but with a YouTuber I like to watch for like fashion and clothes and stuff. She was talking about like, oh, and I wore this on my vacation, and she just subtly put in, we support only fully vaccinated vacations on this channel. I was just like, okay, F you.
It's a strange thing to add.
It's like she's like an 18-year-old.
Maybe she's one of them.
I understand saying that as a way of warding off criticism. Like, oh, well, we just got back from this vacation. You know, you're going to get flooded with comments from people. That's so irresponsible of you.
Oh.
So trying to ward that off, I would understand.
Could be.
But if they're like actively trying to convince you to get vaccinated, no, I'm out.
Well, you're an unusual personality, and I don't know how well this goes for these folks. I mean, what do teenagers think about the vaccine? How many of them are scared to death of it because of all the propaganda that they're being pounded with? I mean, these kids are a lot of them are in government schools, so you know they're getting double or triple the doses of propaganda, you know, because the average person they're working or whatever, so they see it on television or they see it on their social media or in the news or whatever they're consuming. I mean, I imagine the government's cramming it down their throats.
I know. I was
schools.
talking to my 16-year-old coworker, and she was saying something about girls arguing about the masks at school, and I was like, I didn't even think about that. It would be so annoying right now to be in high school with a bunch of just like dumb people who all repeat the same thing over and over right now during this coronavirus stuff.
Not to mention trying to date people in high school.
Oh, yeah.
And having to wear a mask for that. Screw that.
Well, how about just trying to date people at all? And having to deal with all these mask people out there. In fact, I actually had a story about that too. This is from BusinessInsider.com. Apple has taken down an app that is dedicated to unvaccinated people dating each other.
Apple took that. Why? It's not a threat to vaccinated people.
Well, you know how they do. They've got their political thing, and they're going to enforce it. They say that the app Apple told the app it, quote, inappropriately refers to the COVID-19 pandemic in its concept or theme. So the answer to why is they're just doing the bidding of the state.
Yep.
Doing what a good little corporate citizen does, which is whatever the state tells it to do.
Wouldn't vaccinated people want there to be an app like that? Like, so unvaccinated people aren't on Tinder
no, I would
or whatever?
think that the vaccinated people, the ones that are nasty at least, I'm sure there are some people who leave other people alone. They're just like, okay, I got my vaccination, now I'm going to shut up. But those who always have something to say about unvaccinated people probably want to see the unvaccinated people die. And they certainly don't want the unvaccinated people reproducing, which would mean they certainly don't want them dating, because that leads ultimately to them reproducing.
That's stupid. Imagine being motivated by something like that. Like, oh, these people, they don't believe what I believe. They shouldn't be reproducing.
But that's really what some of them believe. They want to see unvaccinated people suffer, even though ostensibly it's all about saving lives.
And it's just because they feel dumb for falling for something. I feel like deep down...
I don't think they feel dumb. I think they feel like they are superior.
On some level at this point, they have to feel dumb, right? With the Delta variant and with the CDC's own document saying that 75% of the people currently hospitalized in Massachusetts are fully vaccinated.
Mm-hmm. And plenty of other documents with
And with the CDC coming out and saying, oh yeah, by the way, being vaccinated, you still have to put your mask on because you can still get COVID and you can still spread it. Surely, deep down inside, on some level... they feel a little stupid.
I think there are some who have said, I feel like I've, been suckered or whatever. I've seen some reactions like that. But what the percentage is, I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Vincent was reading on his show, like, some Reddit posts of people saying, like, I got the vaccine and now I'm starting to regret it. I thought we were not going to have to wear face masks.
Right. There's that group there's the group of people. So you got the group of people who got the vaccine because they're true believers and they've completely bought into the propaganda and they'll do anything that the government tells them to do as long as it's coming from somebody they trust, right? They won't do what Trump says, but even though Trump was saying the same exact things, basically. So there's the true believers. Those are the types that are going to wear double mask, right?
Yeah. Sadly.
And then there's the people that wore the mask because they just wanted to go along to get along. They didn't want to, get into an argument with their neighbors or with the doorman at Walmart or whatever. They wore the mask for that reason, and then once the rules went away, they stopped wearing the mask. But they got the vaccine because, like you're suggesting, it was suggested to them they wouldn't have to keep wearing the mask if they got the vaccine.
Well, it was outright stated at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, everything would go back to normal. Just get the vaccine.
And then that was a lie.
Of course it was a lie. So Apple Saturday removed Unjected, a dating and community app for unvaccinated people, from its App Store.
Is it still on the Google Play Store?
I didn't check, but that's a good question. This is all about Apple, so presumably yes.
I need a better dating app.
From its App Store, in a move that the app's owners likened to censorship. Quote, apparently we're considered too much for sharing our medical autonomy and freedom of choice, said the founder of Unjected, Shelby Thompson, in a video posted on Instagram on Saturday. So, of course, Apple removed us. The app violated Apple's policies for COVID-19 content, an Apple spokesperson told Insider Saturday. The company cited published interviews in which Unjected's founders said their app was for, quote, like-minded, unvaccinated individuals, unquote.
It's sad that we even have a dating app for that, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's not surprising.
No, but it's sad.
I think there should have been one a long time ago for people who don't like vaccinations in general. I've gotten broken up with because I'm not vaccinated fully. Yeah.
Wow.
He said that he at first thought it was just my mom being crazy, but then he found out that I don't ever intend to get vaccinated.
Oh, so you're crazy too.
Yeah.
And this was before the pandemic.
Oh, this was in 2019.
Wow.
I've been broken up for some really stupid reasons as well, but never because I wasn't vaccinated.
That tops
something.
it, huh?
Yeah.
It was in 2019, the beginning of 2019, a whole bunch of stories came out about an outbreak of measles in Austin, and it was vaccinated kids who were getting the measles because of the unvaccinated kids.
Which doesn't make any sense, but
right.
Go on with
because
their mental
a vaccine
gymnastics.
is supposed to stop you from getting the thing.
Yes. Yeah, but there wasn't herd immunity because there's all these anti-vaxxers.
Yeah, but that only affects the anti-vaxxers, right?
Supposedly.
Yeah. His aunt wouldn't let me come to their house because I didn't get vaccinated as a kid, and his cousin had cancer, so they thought that I could, without having any diseases, give him a disease.
Wow, so you're old school at facing anti-vax discrimination or whatever.
Not that I would actually use an unvaccinated dating app, just kind of a joke.
Well, you've got a boyfriend, so you don't need to, but, prior to us getting together, I've been on these apps, and...
Oh, they're cesspools, though.
A lot of them are all about making a political statement. Prior to the vaccine, which now you can indicate whether you're vaccinated on these dating apps, because, they want to... People who are vaccinated don't want to date unvaccinated people.
They're like vegans. The world must know that they're vegans.
And it was the same thing with, were you a Black Lives Matter supporter? Are you in favor of trans rights? So they have all these, badges that you can put on your profile. More coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
These reports are deeply disturbing and totally unacceptable.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken blasting the Taliban amid reports that atrocities are being committed against Afghan civilians as the group grabs territory in the wake of America's military withdrawal. Afghan President Ashraf Ghani said today that the blame lies firmly at America's door. At the State Department, Mr. Blinken again urged the Taliban and the Afghan government to work on a political settlement to the country's crisis.
An Afghanistan that does not respect the basic rights of its people, that does not have a representative and inclusive government, that does not abide by the main gains of the last 20 years, is an Afghanistan that will be a pariah state, certainly for the United States and I believe for the international community.
Meanwhile, the White House has unveiled fresh plans to grant refugee status to a larger number of Afghans who worked with American forces, diplomats and media organizations. But the Secretary of State was unable to explain how most of them will be able to cross Taliban lines and reach third countries where their applications to move to the US would be processed. The Polish government has granted a humanitarian visa to Kristina Timanovskaya, the Belarusian sprinter who claimed she was being forcibly returned to Minsk from the Tokyo Olympics. She sought the protection of Japanese police over the weekend. Today, the Poles guaranteed her safe passage to Warsaw. There's more uproar in Britain over COVID-19 travel limitations after the government indicated it's thinking of revising its traffic light system to create an amber watch list that would warn travellers when a country is at risk of being moved to the red list, which requires quarantine upon return. The travel industry says the move would be a disaster, but the government seems set to press ahead, as FSN's Laura Macon-Isherwood reports from our London bureau.
While this move by the government to allow people coming back from now amber list countries to not have to isolate if they have been fully vaccinated, it's still a matter of concern for people, because if they are on the amber watch list, they could all of a sudden find themselves on the red list and facing even greater quarantine.
Britain and Iran have upbraided one another's diplomats after the US and UK joined Israel in blaming Tehran for last week's deadly assault on a tanker in the waters of the Arabian Sea. A British security guard and a Romanian crew member were killed in the drone attack on the MV Mercer Street. The US says collective reprisals will be taken against Iran. Chris Doyle is the director for the Council for Arab-British Understanding.
Iran has tested international patience with a variety of attacks on shipping in the Arabian or Persian Gulf.
This was the fifth attack against a ship connected to Israel since February. From bureaus worldwide, this is
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and you can bring up what you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And there's more to this story, by the way. We changed over to this Apple computer, the Apple Store banning the unvaccinated dating app. But there's more to the story about the TikTokers and the Twitchers and the YouTubers getting money from the feds. And we can talk about that, too. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Arya.
Again, the number is 603-283-6160. But we're talking about right now Unjected, which I had not heard of this, but then again, I'm not in the dating market. But I was prior to meeting Bonnie last year, which I met her in October. So I was still on these apps during the so-called pandemic, and I saw...
As was I.
Yeah, and I saw these people starting to put masks on in their dating profile pictures, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, the whole point of this is to put your best face forward, right? So that I can judge your physical characteristics and whether or not I find them attractive.
I mean, it is shallow, but that's the whole point, as you said.
Yes.
It's at least the first objective. Like, you have to be physically attracted to someone first.
That generally helps. Yeah, absolutely. And so
I
it
couldn't
does.
date someone I was.
If I'm not physically attracted to,
what's the point?
Yeah, there's never going to be any emotional or other connection, so why bother?
Yeah, I have to like looking at you.
When you put it that way, it seems so simple.
Yeah.
But it is simple.
But they're hiding their faces, and either they're doing it as an excuse because they don't want their face to be seen, or it's a signal. It's a signal saying, hey, I'm in the club. I'm with the fear club. I'm with the obedience club, and I don't want anything to do with you unobedient people.
It's so anti-sex league, like from 1984. Like, we're just procreating for the party. We don't need to see each other's faces.
And it's very much the equivalent of just throwing one of those rainbow flags there in their profile, or a black fist, or a hashtag BLM or whatever. It's the exact same sort of signaling.
Well, the crazy thing is, Bonnie, I don't know if you
are you going to transmit COVID to someone via this app, but if they see your unmasked face? The answer is obviously no.
Yeah.
So why are you posing for a picture on this dating app in your masked face unless you're trying to send a very specific signal about how you're in that exact club?
That's exactly what this is. But I don't know if you knew this, Bonnie, but there were governments last year who were giving advice, and I don't remember if it was the UK or US or both.
It was New York.
Was it New York? They were saying if you're going to have sex, that you were not to have sex in positions where you could transfer your mouth fluids. So don't kiss.
So you can't kiss.
Right, don't kiss.
I think it was New York City that suggested putting some sort of divider between the parties.
Yeah. Don't kiss.
So basically like a glory hole.
And you could you could have sex in like the missionary, not missionary. Missionary was prohibited, I think, because then you're face to face.
Well, it was recommended against, not necessarily prohibited.
Well, right, because they didn't have cameras in people's homes to, physically stop them from doing these things yet.
Telescreens.
But
your Samsung television is getting pretty close to being that telescreen.
It's just scary how close reality has come to what you just brought up from 1984. So now you got Unjected that was pulled down this weekend by Apple, and according to the story here at BusinessInsider.com, they were also removed previously from the App Store, but Apple reinstated it after the app went through certain updates. What happened then was the founders asked Unjected users to avoid anti-vaccination buzzwords, including jabbed and microchip. By trying to trick Apple's reviewers, the app again violated App Store policies, said the Apple spokesperson.
It amazes me how jabbed has become this just common vernacular for getting a vaccine, because it's even on Drudge Report and Fox News and MSNBC.
Right. Get the jab.
Phrase, jab, right?
It's obnoxious.
It is. And this is supposed to be a life-saving vaccine, and we reduced it to hashtag get the jab.
Bloomberg News on Saturday reported that Apple removed the app after being contacted by a reporter. So a news person was doing a report about Unjected is what it's called. And then because the reporter brought it to their attention, they pulled down the app again.
That sounds like Apple.
Yeah. So anyway, the story goes on. I'll post it for you over on our social media website. You can go to social.freetalklive.com. Did you check on the Google thing, by the way? I don't know if you...
What was the Google
just
thing?
to see if it was still there, to see if the what's it called? Unjected? Unjected?
Yeah, I don't have legal permission to.
Oh, sorry.
I would have to request that first and then look to see if it's still there.
I don't have Google Play on my Android phone, and I have an iPhone. Other than that.
Well, the company does say we're looking into ways to get off of Apple and Google, but the easiest transition for us might be to make the website as great as possible, since they can't shut that down like the app. And that is one of the problems with these app stores, is they are very centralized. I mean, you basically have two places where the 99% of the phone users in the world go to get their apps. Now, there are other alternatives when it comes to Google phones, like F-Droid, which is an open source alternative to Google Play that only has open source software on it. So it's a limited amount of things that you can get through F-Droid. And you can still download what they call the APK file for your Google phone. And that, if you change one of the security settings on your phone, which is fairly easy to do, you can install things from other places besides the Google Play Store. So if you need
like getapk.com or something like that.
Yeah, and obviously there's the question of, are you getting a safe, APK? But the truth is, if you get it from Google, it's not necessarily safe, because Google doesn't they don't review all the apps on the Google Play Store.
Right.
They have no idea.
Well, they can't review that many apps.
Well, right, but Apple does. Apple does review with a human being to some extent. I don't know how deep they dig into the code or anything like that, but they do look, at the very least, at apps that are submitted for the Apple App Store. So everything that's on the Apple App Store has been given the thumbs up by Apple. So they're very, very picky about what's on there. So it's easier to get an app on the Google Store, but Google can still take things down for whatever arbitrary reasons that they want to.
They can and they do.
Yeah. So back to the story here about, this is from the New York Times again, courtesy of archive.ph. Great website that actually allows you to find creative ways around some of these paywalls. But talking about how the White House has approached over 50 Twitch streamers, YouTubers, and TikTokers, and apparently an 18-year-old pop star named Olivia Rodrigo, who I had not heard of, but all supposedly have enormous online audiences.
Does it have a list of these 50 people so that I can just go ahead and
not follow them?
Yeah.
It doesn't have it here on this story, but it may be available publicly. You know, Freedom of Information Act probably has given this information to somebody.
The odds seem pretty low that I would end up watching one of these people anyway. I don't pay a lot of attention to influencers because I'm not one of the types of people who really follows trends and stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm glad I'm already a Olivia Rodrigo hater.
Why do you hate her?
She just makes annoying music, dresses ugly.
State and local governments have begun similar campaigns. So it's not just the feds, it's also state governments, which of course they're likely using federal money from the COVID bills to pay for this. So they want to hire local micro-influencers, those who have 5,000 to 100,000 followers, and pay them up to $1,000 a month to promote COVID-19 vaccines to their fans. So this is a fairly wide-ranging, wide targeting. They're not just going with these biggies with the millions of followers. They're going with local people, too.
Well, they have to. Local people connect with the local audiences better.
Better, absolutely.
It's just so weird to see them doing this so in the out in the open. Normally, I would just assume
admitting
that
it, you mean?
Yeah, normally I would assume that the government paid X TikToker to talk about the vaccine if they were doing that.
Now you know they did.
Yeah.
So it goes on showing examples of what these things have looked like. For instance, one of them, a woman named Christina Najjar, who's a 30-year-old TikTok star known as Tinks. She got hired, says she was thrilled when the White House reached out to her manager in June, and she posted soon a question and answer video about the vaccines with Dr. Anthony Fauci. So they can increase their appeal even more by getting Anthony Fauci on the videos. Yeah, they booked the star. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever you want. Coming up, an update on John McAfee. What happened with his countdown clock? You remember that from a couple weeks ago on his website with the death clock? More coming up.
On March 16th this year, government task forces violently raided the New Hampshire Bitcoin Embassy, the Mighty Moose Mart, the homes of Aria DiMezzo, Andy and Renee Spinella, Colleen Fordham, a grandmother, and perhaps most relevant, the studios of Free Talk Live. The Crypto Six were arrested. 4 were released on bail conditions, but Ian Freeman was held hostage for 69 days. Rich Paul, also known as Nobody, remains captive. We've consulted attorneys who say no crime even appears to have been committed. But that didn't stop the Joint Thug Task Force from ripping out wires from our broadcast stacks, taking Free Talk Live off the air, resulting in a violation of our and your First Amendment rights. You can visit thecrypto6.com to help, but as importantly, contact other media and tell them about this outrage. This case is likely to set precedent for cryptocurrency use well into your future. Help our fight for liberty and financial freedom at thecrypto6.com.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Phone records, financial and location data, Prism, Tempora, Xkeyscore, Boundless Informant. Hey, y'all, Scott Horton here for offnow.org. Now, here's the deal. Due to the Snowden revelations, we have a great opportunity for a short period of time to get some real rollback of the national surveillance state. Now, they're already trying to tire us by introducing fake reforms in the Congress. And the courts, they betrayed their sworn oaths to the Constitution and Bill of Rights again and again, and can in no way be trusted to stop the abuses for us. We've got to do it ourselves. How? We nullify it at the state level. It's still not easy, but the Off Now project of the 10th Amendment Center has gotten off to a great start. I mean it. There's real reason to be optimistic here. They've gotten their model legislation introduced all over the place, in state after state. I've lost count, more than a dozen. You're always wondering, yeah, but what can we do? Here's something important, something that can work if we do the work. Get started cutting off the NSA support in your state. Go to offnow.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up what you want here, though we're talking about the vaccine pimps out there, the people who've been hired by the White House, by state governments, Twitch people, YouTubers, TikTokers, people with millions of followers being paid, I don't know, thousands of dollars a month. They say $1,000 a month is what some state governments are paying.
Yeah, for local
for lower level, what they're calling micro influencers.
Yeah, but this girl. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. That must be why I saw this horrible, cringy vaccine, and I showed it to you today, vaccine TikTok, where a girl was singing, "These are a few of my favorite vaccines."
Now, wasn't she from Canada?
Yeah, she was talking about Canada, and she didn't seem like famous, but
they're all doing it, right? So like, if it's happening here in the United States, surely Canadian government's doing the same exact thing.
And what's sad is, a lot of these TikTokers probably look up to this girl with her 10 million followers, and they want to be like her. They see her doing this, so they're going to go out and they're going to make their own pro-vaccine video. Of course, they can't get Dr. Fauci.
No, you've got to be, in the club to get him booked.
But she's going to be making pretty big money from the U.S. government if they're willing to lend her, their biggest propaganda mouthpiece.
Right. Public health officials, by the way, according to the New York Times, have used celebrities to reach people since Elvis Presley rolled up his sleeve on the Ed Sullivan Show back in 1956 to get the polio vaccine. Wow. So this isn't a new idea. These days, young people are more likely to trust the advice of their favorite content creator than a mainstream celebrity, according to a 2018 study by the marketing agency MuseFind.
Why would they trust any of them? Like, there are some people on YouTube that I like and stuff like that, but when they start, if they want to give me life advice
medical
or health advice, I'm like, no, dude, stick to being funny.
As a result, quote, "We need to get an influencer army to push the pro-vaccine message out there."
Blatant propaganda.
That's what this is.
We need a propaganda department to manage these people so that they can go out and propagandize the American people.
This is from Jason Harris, the CEO of advertising agency Mekanism, spelled Mekanism, which is an authority, says the New York Times, on influencer marketing. Quote, "That's the only way we're going to have loud enough voices on social to drown out all the misinfo that's happening," he said. Because it's only true when it comes from the White House.
Obviously.
The White House began...
Unless it's Donald Trump, in which case it's only true if it comes from somewhere else.
They began considering the power of online creators in January, repurposing the influencer marketing tactics that Biden had used on the campaign trail toward promoting vaccinations.
No malarkey.
Well,
right.
Given that Biden couldn't even influence 20 people to show up at a campaign event, I don't know if that's necessarily, somebody to look towards for a good example.
Dude, I totally would have gone to a Joe Biden event.
Would you?
Yeah, because there's no telling what he's going to say, and I want to be there in person
to watch
if he says it. Yeah.
I wanted to go to the Trump event that was in Manchester at the airport, but I was working that day. It would have just been so funny.
Yeah, but the thing is, to be so huge, Trump events are huge. You can't even get inside the place unless you paid for a ticket or however they do that.
One of my friends went and they said it was huge, and he was just off in the distance,
right,
but they saw him.
Watching a concert from the nosebleed seats or something like that, except it's not as entertaining as an actual concert.
Yeah.
It's a politician blowing hot air for 2 hours. I would not want to go see Trump or Biden. Actually, there was once upon a time, I think Biden came to Keene State College
and called it Vermont.
Ago. No. I'm thinking previous Biden when he was the vice president.
Okay.
I think they sent him to Keene State College for a campaign appearance, maybe in 2012 or something like that. And
see, he wasn't senile enough for me then.
We were doing a lot of bird dogging. We actually did go to these events, but only to ask them tough questions as they're walking in. There's a lot of great videos from 2012 in Keene where we confronted Rick Santorum and all these other no-name politicians or whoever was coming through, and just
didn't you ask him about what Santorum meant?
We asked him if he'd ever Googled himself. And the joke is, if you Googled Rick Santorum's name, it came up as some sort of dirty sex act involving bodily fluids that we can't talk about on the air. And it was pretty entertaining, his reaction. I think it actually is included in Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree if you watch that at victimlesscrimespree.com. But so we did go to these things, but not to actually watch them speak. We never actually went in to actually watch them give their presentations.
Nice.
We just confronted them on the way, and we tried to figure out where they'd go. So we on the case with Rick Santorum, we had a group of people guarding the front entrance of the library and a group of people out back, and we had two-way radio contacts. So we would know which entrance they picked because they could only pick one of two.
Didn't you do that with Maggie Hassan? Or
we confronted Hassan. She was at the time the governor. It was me and Nobody who confronted her when she was going to give the speech, the commencement speech at Keene State College. So we got her again, we didn't stay to watch her speech. Who cares about that? We got her as she was walking in to go to the speech, and she was waiting in line. She was completely vulnerable because she had to wait in a line to get into to this event. So we just hammered her. It was mostly Nobody who really gave her the good lines, but it was pretty entertaining. So you can find that at the Free Keene Odyssey channel. Go to video.freekeene.com if you want to see some of that fun stuff. Anyway, they go back. This is actually a really detailed article about all these influencers and people here. Lots of talk about Fauci and who's talking to him. In February, Colorado awarded a contract worth up to $16.4 million to Denver-based Idea Marketing, which includes a program to pay creators in the state $400 to $1,000 a month to promote the vaccines.
$16 million.
Yeah, just for people in Colorado to pimp this stuff out.
That's insane. Who's paying for this garbage?
Who do you think? It's tax money. It ain't Pfizer. I can tell you that. Right?
But they should be. I mean, if they want people to advertise for them, if Pfizer wants people to advertise for them, they should be the ones paying for the advertising.
It ain't working like that. That's the thing. This whole thing is a huge public relations campaign for Pfizer and Moderna and whoever the hell else, AstraZeneca and all these major, was it Johnson & Johnson's got one of them or whatever? All these major pharmaceutical manufacturers, they're all getting pimped by the U.S. government, the state governments, the Canadian government, governments all around the planet are pimping these vaccines out. And they're all doing it at taxpayer cost. So it's just like, the war on terror where the U.S. taxpayers are paying to ensure the profits of the oil companies. Same thing's happening now, except it's the pharmaceutical companies that are benefiting. And they're going to come out with a booster shot. That's the next thing, right? And then they're going to pimp that out too.
I don't know what to add to that, but it's disgusting. And I wish more people understood what was happening. It's just this giant filtering of wealth to Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson.
Jessica Bralish, communications director at Colorado's Public Health Department, said influencers are being paid because, quote, all too often, diverse communities are asked to reach out to their communities for free, and to be equitable, we know we must compensate people for their work. As part of the effort, the article says,
I wonder what percentage of the people accepting this money, these influencers, I wonder what percent of them claim to be democratic socialists.
Good question.
I would imagine it's fairly high in these age ranges they're talking.
Yeah, I suspect you're right. Although,
but that's dirty capitalism. They won't help their community because they believe it's right. But oh no, you dangle some cash in front of them, suddenly they're
in.
They're capitalists.
They'll do fascism.
I worked hard for this position. How dare you not offer me compensation?
I worked hard by playing video games.
Well, a job's a job, right?
Yeah, but that ain't like a real job. I'm sorry. I think it's great that people can make a living playing video games. I'm not criticizing the fact that people are able to do this. I mean, this is the dream job of the 90s kid, right? Like there were plenty of us growing up in the 90s. We're like, yeah, I would love to be a video game tester, even though that's a terrible job and it's super annoying because you're always finding problems with games. It's not like you get to play a game for fun.
And the developers never give you feedback, and they generally don't fix the bugs that you find in the first place.
Yeah,
and then it goes to launch and it's like, how come nobody beta tested it? We did, but the company that was publishing it didn't care.
But now people literally do play video games and they get paid for it. So, kudos to them for figuring out how to do that. How long that'll be the case for, I don't know. Is it too late for, the 10-year-old today to grow up and become one of these people? Maybe.
I've always been curious about that too,
You know?
What makes a popular gaming streamer popular? I know that, being skilled at a game is one of the primary things, because you don't want to watch someone just like suck at Mario for 4 hours.
I think that it has to be the reactions, right? It has to be like this was a question for me too when I first started hearing about this, and somebody pointed out PewDiePie. He's like the #1 guy, or at least he was at one time the #1 game streamer. I think it was the #1 channel on YouTube. Period.
I think so.
And he's like the #1 game streamer, and he's got like wild reactions, right? Like, wah! He makes noises. He's got faces.
That's his personality in general.
Yeah, but that's what people want to see, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't want to sit and watch a person who just like sits there. Oh yeah, it sucks. They have to be reactionary. They have to, be excitable and interesting in that way. As part of the effort, influencers have shown off on their arms where they were injected, using emojis and selfies to punctuate the achievement. Ashley Cummins, a fashion and style influencer in Boulder, says, I joined the Pfizer Club. 603-283-6160. Listeners couldn't hear that, but you were rolling your eyes, Aria. We're coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. Hour 2's next.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The White House says vaccination rates are shooting up in the U.S. states that have been hit hardest by a new wave of COVID cases. On average, the country is reporting around 80,000 new coronavirus cases per day, and that's rising fast. Our Washington correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
The White House coronavirus response team is making a clear link between states with the highest numbers of new cases and accelerating vaccination rates. Over the last 3 weeks, Louisiana has seen a 302% increase in the average number of newly vaccinated people per day. Meanwhile, 70% of adults have now had at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine, finally hitting a target the White House originally set for the 4th of July.
The Polish government has granted a humanitarian visa to a Belarusian athlete who refused her team's orders to board a flight home from the Olympic Games. Sprinter Krystyna Simonskaya plans to leave for Poland in the coming days. Lucy Hoff reports.
The 24-year-old sprinter had been due to compete in the women's 200-metre heats on Monday, but on Sunday was taken to Tokyo airport by Belarusian officials to board a flight home after criticising the way the national team was run. Simonskaya refused and was later driven to the Polish embassy to seek refuge after a formal offer of assistance from the Warsaw government. The European Union welcomed Poland's decision and said the repatriation attempt was further evidence of brutal repression by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko.
The Biden administration is allowing more Afghans who worked for the U.S. government to apply for refugee status in America. It means thousands more Afghans will be eligible for visas as violence by the Taliban escalates. U.S. markets began August on a high note thanks to strong corporate earnings, encouraging U.S. manufacturing data and prospects for the $1 trillion infrastructure spending deal. But that optimism failed to hold the day. Here's Li Ling Tan from New York.
Here's what Wall Street had going for it this first trading day of August. That $1 trillion infrastructure spending bill that could pass this week, plus a string of better-than-expected corporate earnings that have propelled equities to new highs. And July's data from the Institute for Supply Management showed strong manufacturing growth for the month. But here's what kept optimism in check. Manufacturing was up, yes, but not as much as the market had expected as raw material shortages and supply chain issues persisted. Also not helping the raging Delta variant that could prolong or bring a return of pandemic restrictions, and China's crackdown on tech companies that has sent shockwaves through global markets, hitting hard at U.S.-listed Chinese firms. At the end of the day, only Nasdaq closed in positive and only by a notch.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Iran's new president, Ibrahim Raisi, will be sworn into office later this week, ushering in a new era of uncertainty in the country's relationship with the West. The head of Iran's judiciary, he won 62% of the vote in June's election, a hardliner with a long track record of condemning thousands of political detainees in Iran to death. He's also mooted as a possible successor to the ailing supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Analyst Bob McMahon is with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations.
He falls firmly into the camp of conservative hardliner. Now, that's sometimes a squishy term as it pertains to Iran, because you could take a whole swath of the Iranian leadership and say they fall into that. The outgoing president, Hassan Rouhani, has been described more as a pragmatist. We're talking about a much different individual coming into the office of president, very much in lockstep with the supreme leader, meaning a more hardline Iran. The desire is to show him acting presidential, acting as a leader, and then being able to elevate him.
The supreme leader at 82 is known to be ailing, although his precise state of health is unclear, but he is expected to keep a keen eye on his protégé's performance as president, with many Iranians believing Ibrahim Raisi is being road-tested for that even more powerful role in the future. Tomorrow, we'll take a look at what his ascendancy means for the future of the Iran nuclear deal. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the top news again. The White House says vaccination rates are shooting up in U.S. states hit hardest by a new wave of coronavirus cases. The Polish government has granted a humanitarian visa to a Belarusian athlete who refused orders to board a flight home from the Olympics. And the Biden administration is allowing more Afghans who worked for the U.S. government to apply for refugee status in America. And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Rebecca Foster reporting.
A flash flood warning is in effect, and authorities are asking people to stay indoors and avoid the roads.
We are urging everyone to seek shelter. Remember, being carried away by this storm is very different from the joy of being carried by Bogdan and seeing for miles from his shoulders.
The typhoon is predicted to hit the South Carolina coast the hardest. Chad Williams is live on the scene now. The wind looks pretty strong out there, Chad.
Barely, but it is nothing compared to Bogdan.
So people in South Carolina aren't worried?
No, they laugh at the storm. They are piling sandbags to stop the water. Would mere sand stop Bogdan?
But there is real danger. Authorities say that 3 people were killed outside of Charleston when their car was washed into a ravine.
And in that we have proof. The storm has failed the true test of strength. Bogdan's greatest power is his gentle heart. Bogdan would never hurl a car full of people into a ravine.
So from what you're seeing out there, real strength lies within?
Yes, this storm, like all else, is weaker than Bogdan.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is why I got vaccinated and why you should get vaccinated. Reason 1, once you're vaccinated, you can go wherever you want.
So this, by the way, is the video of Ellie Zeiler. She's one of the dozens of so-called influencers. She's got 10 million followers on TikTok. We're watching this on our YouTube channel.
Can you play that clip again? Or just that little...
Sure.
Vaccinated, 2. Reason 1, once you're vaccinated, you can go wherever you want.
Okay, so audio quality is not a thing for 10 million people.
Well, she's just in her bedroom or whatever.
She's just a high schooler making TikTok videos.
I know, but why does she have 10 million followers for such a low quality?
Because she's pretty. Really pretty.
Okay.
You can't see from over where you're sitting.
That makes sense. Okay, understood then.
Yeah, who knows what else she does? We were watching. What was the girl's name? The #1 TikTok girl.
Charlie. Well, what we were watching was about her sister Dixie D'Amelio, and she doesn't put any effort into her YouTube videos, and she just admits I didn't want to make a video today, but I have to make a video today, so here's my video.
And that's actually a good impression of her. What you're doing.
Hundreds of millions of views. It's weird.
So yeah, basically, to answer your question,
what is wrong with people if they would watch that?
Okay, so these girls are, attractive young women, visibly, right? But they have no actual personality. They have no, there's no real reason to be attracted to them besides just their physical looks. But that's what does it, apparently, and they dance.
See, I need more than that.
Okay, well... You're different, I guess, than 10 million.
That's a good place to start.
11 million people.
Granted,
but they dance, and that's I guess an attractive thing. So that's kind of what they made their name on, was these dancing videos. They don't make their own music or anything like that. I guess they did make some song for this.
Well, they don't write it or anything.
But yeah, so they're not dancing to their own music. They're just dancing to pop music or whatever, and then they blow up. Somebody shares them, and then they become popular, and then they try to do these other things. So we watched this video about this girl and how she is making an interview show now. Now she's doing more than dancing, and it was just terrible.
It's Dixie D'Amelio.
Yeah, it was terrible. And so there was what was the guy?
I mean,
good
on her for trying to improve herself beyond just doing.
Except she's not.
Videos.
She's just somebody said, "Oh, you should do this. It'll get you more views or something."
She openly admits, I have to film a video today.
Yeah, somebody told her to do it.
Oh, this is the same girl?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and her whole attitude is oh. Do I have to be here doing this?
She was I literally can't even kind of people.
Yeah, she's so lazy. She's so wealthy. She's so privileged. She's living in some mansion with her politician father.
Yeah, her dad's a politician.
Or whatever. I mean, she's got,
I already am not a fan of this person.
So annoying to watch this person. But, she's just doing it out of some sort of obligation, not because she's really wanting to do it or whatever.
But that's TikTok for you.
But yeah, so why do people follow them? Because they're pretty.
Are there not pretty people on TikTok who are also intelligent?
Probably, but they probably don't get 10 million followers.
And why is that?
I don't know. This is the world we're in. I mean, everything.
Well, it started with high school and how it was bad to be smart.
Yes, that was the thing back when I was in school too.
Yeah, and it carried on into the internet where it's good to be stupid. The dumber you are on the internet, the cooler you are. Just like in high school.
That's it.
And
it's high school writ large.
Yeah, no one ever grew out of that phase where they realized, oh yeah, you know what? Being intelligent kind of actually rewards you out in the real world, and you can become something instead of just being this idiot working at the dollar store for the rest of their lives.
Well, she's not working at the dollar store now, I suspect, with 10 million.
Well, she's not, but her 10 million followers probably are.
Right.
Or
well, that's
a substantial
the thing.
chunk of them.
That's a good point because, there's probably plenty of pretty young ladies that follow this girl, right? And they're never going to have a chance like she does because only so many people can make it this far. Now, to be fair, the internet has allowed people who otherwise wouldn't have been discovered to make it. So there are certainly more people now who have followers and careers doing things like playing video games or just making silly dancing videos than ever before. And again, I don't want to knock it. If that's the way you're making your living, good for you. I mean, if you can make a living by dancing on TikTok and you don't actually have to go to some crappy menial labor job, kudos. I mean, that's awesome.
Sure.
That's great. But, don't team up with the government and do this crap.
But it speaks to a larger problem in society that someone can make their living doing that instead of saying something intelligent.
I got more from this video. It's only 47 seconds, but it's her, pitch on why she got vaccinated and why you should too.
This girl's 17, right?
Yeah.
I cannot wait to hear this 17-year-old girl explain to me why I should get vaccinated.
Well, remember, all of this is approved by the White House. So you know that they approve the scripts, and they don't just give you $1,000 a month or $10,000 a month or whatever the hell they're paying her because she's got 10 million viewers and then walk away.
Yeah.
They're working hand in hand to, make sure that she says the right things. Let's talk to Gabriel first, though. He's in Minnesota. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. Thanks a lot, first of all, for your service and for taking the call.
Thanks. Go ahead.
I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a spin on the interpretation that I hear Jet call in and give on the time when Jesus, or Yeshua, was asked, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? First of all, he says, show me a coin. He takes a look at the coin, and he says, whose portrait and inscription are on this? So he focused directly on the currency of the state. And then that's when he gives the answer, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, and to God what is God's. So Jet likes to go, hey, what exactly is God's? And then the logical conclusion from that perspective is nothing. But actually, there's another way to see it. You could see it as Yeshua saying, well, don't use Caesar's currency. If you use his currency, you owe him whatever it is back.
I like
according
that.
to whatever agreement that comes
That's
with.
the most common explanation. And
that's how the Reformed Satanic Church interpreted it.
Yeah, from Christian anarchists, that's usually what I hear, which I'm surprised anyone else would say any other thing.
Well, Jet was saying that it means he was saying not don't use the currency, but that everything is God's or something like that, right?
So then, yeah, from Jet's view, it seemed to be from his wording that even the currency is God's. And Arya, you brought up the issue of if everything is God's, then where is anybody's personal property rights, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to give a little bit of a explanation on that, or a possibility of interpretation. If, according to this deity that has created everything belongs to him, including the people, then it would be that the people have stewardship rights. Therefore, we would all still be equal in needing to respect the property of others because they are equal stewards.
But no one owns anything. Everything belongs to God, and God, in his ultimate benevolence in enslaving us and turning us into his property, has decided that he will allow us to be stewards of the earth. Is that right?
Basically, no. Just that we are stewards of what we actually put labor into.
You just described us being God's property, right?
If under the premise that we are God's property,
Are we God's property?
We should recognize that we have.
I think she's asking what you believe, Gabriel, not so much what Jet is believing or your interpretation of Jet, but what does Gabriel think?
I personally believe that we're not his property, as if he's an entity that controls us, that can tell us what to do at any random time, but that he left us the message of the Bible to indicate to us long-lasting eternal principles that we're supposed to follow. So in the sense that we would actually attach to those principles, then we would be following in his ways.
So in your interpretation of it, God, gave man the Bible and it was like, peace out, good luck.
Kind of, but in the sense that if we all came from him, the idea of the biblical story of creation is that nothing existed before except God.
What about all the other stories of creation, like, the pagans and, others that came before Christianity, that many of which were ripped off by the Christians?
Yeah, a lot of them have been definitely distorted and twisted, and included even in certain traditions.
Stand by, Gabriel. More coming up here. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us here on Free Talk Live.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. The number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio with you tonight, it's Ian,
Bonnie,
and Daria.
Hey, I want to say thanks to Bitcoin.com. They are a longtime sponsor here at Free Talk Live. And you know what? I think it's time that people take cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash seriously. In fact, Bitcoin Cash just celebrated its 4th anniversary yesterday. So
happy birthday.
Happy birthday. Or is it a birthday or an anniversary?
It's right by Ethereum's birthday, which was like 4 days
weeks ago or a week
no,
ago?
it was Friday.
So go to Bitcoin.com, click on Get Started at the top of the page, and you can watch an introductory video there that'll take all of, 3-4 minutes, something like that. So give you the basics about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash over at Bitcoin.com. You can also get the latest news headlines on their news site. That's news.bitcoin.com. We're going to go back to Gabriel. He's on the line in Minnesota. Gabriel, you've been talking about biblical interpretations, free will. You were touching on that just a moment ago. And I don't know if you describe yourself as a Christian, do you?
No, I don't. I used to be. I was raised as an evangelical Christian and learned that a lot of the beliefs have spun wildly off track from even what the Bible says.
But yet you believe that God gave us the Bible and then it was like, good luck, basically, right?
To an extent, yeah, because...
So you believe the Bible is the holy book of God?
Yeah, basically. But I know that there have been alterations and changes throughout the years, and there's been interpretation through multiple layers of languages. So there's a lot of complexity in how we got to what we have today.
Sure, I was just curious what your beliefs were.
Isn't it possible, and just to come back to the question I'd asked right before we went to break there, isn't it possible that a lot of the Bible actually is just a retelling or a retread of previous belief systems?
Yeah, and in fact, to some extent it is. I forget the actual term for it, but when it's a corrective or a sort of a polemic, that's the word, polemic. A lot of the biblical story in the earlier books is a polemic against some of the beliefs and the processes that they had at the time in the other cultures and what the Israelites themselves were just coming out of. So they had a lot of ideas of idolatry, things that were really distorted, but I'm pretty sure, at least from my own perspective, that people used to have more connection to the principles of the origin of the world, where a lot of cultures today have surviving sort of a birth idea of the creation myths. Right?
I believe the question Ian was getting at, though, was like, the story of Noah is basically stolen wholesale from the Epic of Gilgamesh.
And there are other examples of that. I wish I could. I'm not an expert on these topics, but Bonnie and I, we've been reading a book. What's it called, Bonnie?
The Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Yeah, it's a book about esoteric, what is today esoteric stuff, but in the past was maybe a little bit more well known.
Yeah, there was
a lot of these stories are straight up ripped off in the Bible.
Ian doesn't know as much about the Bible as me, but I hardcore studied the book of Genesis as a kid because I grew up like an evangelical Christian. And there was this story we were reading about creation. I want to say it was written by Thoth the Atlantean.
Hermes
Trismegistus. And it was just literally the story of Genesis, just
written hundreds of years beforehand, right?
Hundreds of years before the Bible was ever written, and it was just, slight details were changed. So that's why I can't just believe, God gave us the Bible. It's obviously just a bunch of stuff pulled together so the governments could control people.
Well, it's not to say that the message of God, if you believe in a singular God, which I don't, I'm a pantheist, but that the message couldn't be in all of these works. It's just the Christians believe it's only their Bible, and that's the only time God has ever spoken, and God spoke to these specific people, and they will never speak to anybody else. And I think the fact that these stories are so similar across different generations and time periods and groups of people.
It's very complex trying to sort out between which ones came first, and then you have all these interpretations of the experts too to deal with.
Does it matter which one came first if it's not original? None of them are original.
Sure.
Why would coming first would be useful, but if we found out that, Greek mythology came first, which obviously didn't, but if we found that out, would you suddenly start worshiping Zeus because theirs was the original story?
I wouldn't personally. So the only thing that really pertains to which one is first is regarding whether or not this writing ripped off that writing, So let's see.
Well, they almost certainly did, because the Christians were basically trying, as I understand it, at some point, were trying to exterminate some of the people that had come before them, some of the, as you described them, idolaters, some of the pagans, etc. And so in order to bring those people, if they didn't want to kill them all, they had to convert them, right? So it was either convert or kill them. And so they cooked up some very similar stories to attract people over to Christianity. And
it was Josephus who admitted the similarities between Horus of Egyptian mythology and Mithra of Hinduism and Hercules of Greek mythology, that all of these are sons of God. All of these stories are very similar. Early Christian apologists openly admitted this, that these stories were taken from these other religions in order to make it easier for people to accept the Christian version of them.
I think that in the essence, in the idea of becoming sons of God, it's the concept of basically being like him in the idea that we focus on the eternal qualities, the eternal principles, such as non-aggression. We see in Romans 13:10, it directly says, love does no harm to a neighbor. Therefore, love is the right way to fulfill the commandment.
I'll agree with you on that much, Gabriel. Thank you for the call tonight. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. I got the feeling we were talking past him, but
See, that's what I'm saying with these young Christians. First of all, there's that talking past them, feeling they're not listening or internalizing anything you're saying. They're thinking up their excuses to continue believing what they already believe. Mm-hmm. And secondarily, okay, the New Testament says don't hurt anyone, and the Old Testament had God telling people to murder other people, so why should I listen to the Bible at all?
Well, he quoted Romans, and Romans was written by Paul, and Paul advocated for slavery, telling slaves, return to your master and obey your master.
Really?
The only information to convey to a slave that would be consistent with the non-aggression principle would be, you own yourself, escape, get your freedom at any cost. But Paul didn't say that, did he? No, because he was a statist.
Wow.
I think I like to read the Bible all the time, and the only reason I like to read it, the only thing I like to get out of it is things that you can get between the lines just from asking the universe to reveal things to you. I think you can do that with almost any holy book. Mm-hmm. I would never take any of it literally and be like, oh, well, this guy says to do this, and I should be more like this. Yeah.
We can do the same thing with Harry Potter if you just, reflect on what moral stories you've learned from it.
Well, not Harry Potter, but I do it with all types of books like that, and I think that's what people should use the Bible for.
603-283-6160. Coming up, we got more about why I got vaccinated by Ellie Zeiler. Or Ellie Zeiler.
I'm anxious to hear it, man.
10 million subscribers on YouTube. She's pimping vaccines, and she's getting paid to do so by the federal government. But it's not just these big people on TikTok. It's also what they're calling micro-influencers. State governments are paying $1,000 a month to locals who've got 5,000, 10,000, 100,000 viewers. More coming up. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The White House says vaccination rates are shooting up in the U.S. states that have been hit hardest by a new wave of COVID cases. On average, the country is reporting around 80,000 new coronavirus cases per day, and that's rising fast. Our Washington correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
The White House coronavirus response team is making a clear link between states with the highest numbers of new cases and accelerating vaccination rates. Over the last 3 weeks, Louisiana has seen a 302% increase in the average number of newly vaccinated people per day. Meanwhile, 70% of adults have now had at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine, finally hitting a target the White House originally set for the 4th of July.
The Polish government has granted a humanitarian visa to a Belarusian athlete who refused her team's orders to board a flight home from the Olympic Games. Sprinter Krystyna Simonskaya plans to leave for Poland in the coming days. Lucy Hoff reports.
The 24-year-old sprinter had been due to compete in the women's 200-metre heats on Monday, but on Sunday was taken to Tokyo airport by Belarusian officials to board a flight home after criticising the way the national team was run. Simonskaya refused and was later driven to the Polish embassy to seek refuge after a formal offer of assistance from the Warsaw government. The European Union welcomed Poland's decision and said the repatriation attempt was further evidence of brutal repression by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko.
The Biden administration is allowing more Afghans who worked for the U.S. government to apply for refugee status in America. It means thousands more Afghans will be eligible for visas as violence by the Taliban escalates. U.S. markets began August on a high note thanks to strong corporate earnings, encouraging U.S. manufacturing data and prospects for the $1 trillion infrastructure spending deal. But that optimism failed to hold the day. Here's Li Ling Tan from New York.
Here's what Wall Street had going for it this first trading day of August. That $1 trillion infrastructure spending bill that could pass this week, plus a string of better than expected corporate earnings that have propelled equities to new highs. And July's data from the Institute for Supply Management showed strong manufacturing growth for the month. But here's what kept optimism in check. Manufacturing was up, yes, but not as much as the market had expected as raw material shortages and supply chain issues persisted. Also not helping the raging Delta variant that could prolong or bring a return of pandemic restrictions, and China's crackdown on tech companies that has sent shockwaves through global markets, hitting hard at U.S.-listed Chinese firms. At the end of the day, only Nasdaq closed in positive and only by a notch.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and of course, you can bring up whatever you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Aria.
All right, so we were in the last hour talking about these influencers. It's in the mainstream media, the New York Times, doing a big story about how exciting this is. That, oh my gosh, look at all these TikTokers and YouTubers and Twitch people. The government is targeting young people because they say that it's necessary to vaccinate all these teenagers who, by their nature are almost completely immune from any serious consequences from COVID. But we're supposed to believe that it's a huge push, that, it's super important that these people get vaccinated because everybody's supposed to,
Big
according
shock
to the government.
that these TikTokers love money.
And any journalist worth their salt would be criticizing and drawing attention to the fact that the American government is paying random people to propagandize the rest of the country.
Except not the New York Times.
Well, because none of them are journalists.
Right.
They're
Yeah, it's
propagandists themselves.
That's straight up what's been going on here, and that's been going on for longer than COVID, of course. It's just now even more in your face. And here the propagandist of the New York Times is talking about all the other propagandists of the TikTokers who are nowhere near as polished, by the way, as the New York Times.
Certainly not.
The New York Times has been around for, 100, 200 years or whatever the hell it is. They're still kicking, still alive. For how much longer, we don't know. But for now, they are on the same level as Ellie Zeiler, who's got 10 million. I bet you that's more people that read the New York Times, by the way. 10 million.
This raises the question of whether the U.S. government has paid the New York Times to promote the COVID-19 vaccine. If they will pay TikTokers, why wouldn't they pay the New York Times, which has a substantially larger and better respected reach?
Well, it may be a better respected reach in that their subscribers are actually paying for the New York Times, and they're likely more, educated, right? They probably went to college and they've got jobs and decent levels of income. Well, I'm just guessing, right? Like, you're probably older if you're reading a newspaper. I suspect that's going to be true when you look at newspaper audiences. But according to the New York Times itself, they have 7.8 million subscribers, which means they don't have as many followers, if you will, as Ms. Ellie Zeiler, the 17-year-old girl on TikTok.
That's got to hurt for the New York Times. But my overall point really was that if the U.S. government can get away with paying random TikTokers, and they can get away with paying Mark Zuckerberg, Alphabet Inc., which is the company that owns Google, or any other, the Drudge Report, whoever they want, they can just hand them money and say, we want you to do this. And they will more than likely do it if it's enough money. This sort of thing has to be, it's been going on for a very long time, but it has to be stopped. Do you really want the government to be able to hand Newsweek or whoever a large bundle of cash and be like, hey, this is the story we want you to tell?
I don't want that, but I don't know if it's ever going to stop until the government disappears. Why would it ever stop? It's not technically illegal for them to buy an advertisement, is it?
It should be.
Yeah. Well, they're not going to enforce that one on themselves.
No, but the people would have to enforce it on them.
Yeah. And that's not going to happen.
No. But it needs to.
Government schools have basically been 12-year advertisements for the government.
Great point.
Yeah.
8-hour-a-day long, 12-year advertising. It's actually 13 years if you include kindergarten, and then another 4 if you include the colleges, which you should, because those are all government-run, government-funded. But let's get back to Ellie Zeiler. She's got 10 million subscribers, and here's her video. Now, to be fair, this is on her YouTube channel. She's only got 121,000 subscribers there, but I say that. We've got 300 on Odyssey. Our YouTube channel's got maybe 4,000 or 6,000 or something like that after a decade in existence. So here's why she got vaccinated, she says. Let's go back to the beginning.
This is why I got vaccinated and why you should get vaccinated too. Reason 1, once you're vaccinated, you can go wherever you want.
Apparently that one worked on Mark Edge from what I heard last night.
I can go wherever I want anyway. Well, not right now I can't because I can't leave the United States, but I don't really want to go to the outside of the United States anyway. So,
But if you wanted to go on a cruise ship.
But I don't want to go on a cruise ship.
Right.
So I can go wherever I want already, and I'm not vaccinated. So she's already not scoring well.
You can go to the beach, take a stroll.
And now she's showing herself on like a green screen where when she says go to the beach, she's on a beach, even though she's not really there. And then she's on like a main street in some city.
Around your city.
Hold
you
on,
can go
'cause I've been to the beach once in like the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And that was because the government had closed it down because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So that was last year then.
You can go to the beach.
Yeah. We went to the beach.
We did. It was cold.
It was.
sucked.
It was not a fun day.
But
Well, I mean, it was fun, but
it was cool peeing into the ocean. I enjoyed that.
Ew.
There's plenty of water there. It's diluted. It's fine.
Yeah. Think about all the fish that, you know, do things in the ocean. So no big deal. Well, the thing is, we couldn't go anywhere to actually find a bathroom because of all the COVID shutdowns, right? You couldn't go. Like,
You
we tried
offered to buy stuff from a store.
Yeah, I tried. I
Oh,
tried
yeah.
to go to some store and like, hey, can I use your bathroom? No, sorry, cannot. You know.
That really happened to me all the time during COVID-19 doing Uber Eats too. Like
Yep.
one time I walked into a CVS and I didn't see a sign on the front door that said that there was like nothing else around the CVS, which is kind of odd, but it just was the case. And I went all the way into the back and then I see this sign in front of the door. It says like, due to COVID-19, our bathrooms are closed. And I just went around it. It was like this big stand-up thing. And I went in there and peed because I was going to pee on their floor if not. Like it was like...
they don't want that.
And when I came out, there was a lady like, next time, please don't use our bathrooms. They're for employees only right now. And I was like, well, you didn't have a sign on the front door.
And you didn't lock it. Because in some places, they'll lock it, right? Like if you're in a bad neighborhood and you go into a Walgreens or something like that, there's like a keyed lock on the door, or you know, one of those punch code locks on the door, and then you go up and ask, like, hey, I'm a customer, you know, I'll buy something. Can I use your bathroom? Like, nope.
Yeah, that's true. I would have just
You know?
peed in like their bushes outside. Seriously, I had to pee.
Let me go on here with Ellie Zeiler and why she got vaccinated.
Shopping. Cute blazer. And depending on the regulations, you don't even have to wear a mask.
Oh, except you do in a lot of places. In fact,
and it's depending on the regulations. Check with your local and city government.
Yeah, of course, California is rolling that stuff back out. Actually, today, Louisiana, the governor announced that they're coming back with a mask mandate, an indoor mask mandate for all of Louisiana, for all indoor public places. It's back. Only for the next 4 weeks, though. No big deal. It'll just be gone after 4 weeks.
Did they actually have the gall to say that this is only for the next 4 weeks?
They did, yep.
I hope that no one had the idiocy to believe it.
Let's go on.
Number 2, you can hang out with other vaccinated people. Here is a picture of my friend Kendall and I reuniting for the first time since COVID started after we both got vaccinated. For me, getting vaccinated was one of
So now you can hang out with people again. If you get vaccinated, you can go places, you can hang out with people.
Mix your shedding together.
I could do those things anyway. I
could.
never asked people, are you vaccinated? Before I hung out with them because I'm not a coward.
Yeah, you're not a pussy.
And it's none of your business if anybody else is vaccinated, honestly.
Well, she gets a little bit deeper here as to her feelings about it.
the most gratifying feelings I've felt probably in my entire life. I walk around now and feel like I am guarded and safe by something.
See, that's what it's about. It's all
clearly,
about
'cause it doesn't
feeling
work.
safe.
It might not even be about that to her. She's probably reading a script.
That's a good point, yeah.
I highly urge all of you guys to get vaccinated as well so that someday you and I can meet in person and physically. I love you
Sure.
guys so much. Good luck getting vaccinated.
Sure, yeah. Like she wants to meet her 10 million followers in person. You
Only
know how
if
many
they're vaccinated.
Right. How many of her 10 million followers are total creepers?
Probably like
you know?
45-year-old dudes. Yeah.
She doesn't want to. You don't want to meet these people for the most part. You know, these people, they look. I don't want to make it sound like.
Plus, they think they know her, right? We've talked about this before.
Yeah. I don't mind meeting people. I don't, but I know how they can be. It's like, oh my God, you're Ian Freeman. It's like, look, I'm just a regular guy. I've got a radio show. It's no big deal. And you know, but they get that way, right?
Right.
And if you've got 10 million of them, you're gonna have some real crazies in there. So you know it's not true, but you know she said it because she wants you to get vaccinated.
She said a lot of stupid stuff in that video.
Well, I'm sure that's about the level of intellect that you get from this girl's channel. 603-283-6160. What she didn't say was how much she got paid for it. More coming up here. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Does this ever happen to you? Moments after you're introduced to someone, you forget his or her name. It's a common faux pas you'll want to avoid, especially if you're a job seeker. And even if you're not, here's a tip. As you are being introduced, and while you're still shaking hands, smiling, and making eye contact, say the person's name aloud. Not only does that make a deposit in your memory bank, it acknowledges the other person. And that is more than a nuance, as is maintaining eye contact. With money and attention so scarce now, effective communication skills have never been more important. Cutting through the clutter rather than blending into the blah, blah, blah will help you connect better no matter what the conversation. For more tips, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Arya.
Of course, you can bring up anything that you want. I think we've pretty much tapped out the story about the influencers. Just be aware. I mean, these people out there are getting paid, and we don't know how much, although I suspect that information could be available through a Freedom of Information Act to find out how much this teenage girl with 10 million followers is getting paid to pimp vaccines to her viewers, to her mostly likely teenage viewers, but probably
to
a lot
line
of
the
old
pockets
dudes, too.
of Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson &
Yeah,
Johnson.
she's a paid spokesperson for Pfizer without actually being paid directly by Pfizer. She's being paid by the American taxpayer.
So that the government can then turn around and give Pfizer money because you got the vaccine. This is all very confusing, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if it's that confusing. Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are raking in billions upon billions of dollars. God knows how many billions of dollars these companies have already made on this.
And it's because the government is paying for all of these
taxpayers
vaccines.
are paying for it. That's who's paying for it. And not even just taxpayers, but everyone holding the U.S. dollar all around the world is paying for it because they're printing money to fund the COVID bailout bills and the COVID benefits packages and the billions of dollars being shipped around to state governments and local governments to do similar things like hiring TikTokers and that sort of thing. So everybody with dollars that has a savings in dollars is being, stolen from.
All the more reason to get out of the USD.
Yes, exactly. In fact, I've got stories about that tonight. John McAfee.
That's right. I'd forgotten you mentioned that.
Yeah, John McAfee. Well, I'd actually forgotten too. So it was like July 23rd, somewhere around then, that John McAfee sort of came back into the conversation. As you know, he supposedly committed suicide in his cell in a Spanish prison. I don't know what, a month or two ago, something like that.
It was during the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. So, a couple months, less than a month, 2 months ago, something like that. McAfee, longtime software entrepreneur, longtime, eccentric cryptocurrency advocate, questionable scam artist, interesting character. We've
absolutely interesting.
We've had him on Free Talk Live
Total
before.
lunatic, but I loved him to death.
He sent you private messages before pitching a questionable cryptocurrency. And so, he would take money from anybody to pimp anything. So, I mean, if McAfee was alive, I don't think he would have taken the federal government's money, though, for pimping vaccines. But if you had a cryptocurrency, boy, he didn't seem to really care about what it was. He would have taken, you had $100,000 and you had a crypto, he'd pimp it for you.
Sadly true. So you mentioned he had a dead man switch.
That's what everybody was saying.
I haven't heard anything about this until tonight.
Well, that's interesting because there was definitely a lot of buzz around his supposed dead man switch, which apparently has activated. And what had happened on July 23rd that had been brought to our attention was there was a website, ostensibly a website that he created, and it's a weird URL. It's Brit, B-R-I-T, Bong, B-O-N-G, logpost.com. BritBongLogPost.com. Strange URL, but that's what it was. And you'd go there, and you, at the time, would see a countdown clock, and I forget what else it said, but then there was like a weird aerial photograph or like a satellite photo from a map of what was ostensibly a diamond mine in like Sierra Leone for some reason.
Okay.
So it's not clear why that photo was put on the page, but then it had like his face and this countdown timer until the dead man switch was supposedly going to be, activated.
And was this supposed to have been done at, 30 days after no one told it not to activate?
I don't know what the timer was as far as like when it would have to be reset, but obviously it started at some point, and then the timer started counting down the number of days and minutes and hours and seconds and so on until the thing would happen. Whatever it was going to be, it was going to happen. And we talked about this on Free Talk Live because people were buzzing about it and like, okay, here it is. We're at the time on the show, it was like 7 hours left. All right, what's going to happen? What's going to be behind, door number one here with the dead man switch?
Knowing John McAfee, it was probably one of those little things people blow on at parties. It's just animated across the screen, making that stupid little noise.
No, it wasn't that. So I actually forgot all about it.
Sure,
and
understandable.
I didn't hear anything about it, right? Because if it was something big, we would have heard about it.
That's basically what I was relying on for the whole dead man switch thing. I didn't even hear about this countdown thing you're talking about.
You were relying on hearing about it, you mean?
I was just waiting for somebody to be like, oh, this is the thing that came out.
Yeah, I mean, if it was some sort of earth-shattering news, like he was going to... So he had teased at one point that he had like 31 terabytes of data that he, was going to release if he needed to.
John.
If he needed to release it. And so, was this going to be that? Anyway, I hadn't heard anything, and so over the weekend I was just thinking, for whatever reason, I thought about John McAfee, and I'm like, hey, what happened to the dead man switch? So I started looking around, like, all right, what's going on? It was not that easy to find, but I did find a 4chan thread where people are very on, like, they're into it, right? Like the 4chaners, they're...
Who was it who described 4chan as weaponized autism?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a perfect description. So they were really, like, targeting this thing and putting in obscure details about, posts about this and so on and so forth. Anyway, just to sum up what happened, the website, BritBongLogPost.com, went down. Now, it had been going down all night because likely it was getting pounded by requests. I mean, tons of people wanted to see this, what's going on with John McAfee's dead man switch. So the site itself, when it hit zero, when the counter hit zero in the middle of the night, it went offline. Only to return later. Now, I'm not sure how long later, but it did come back, and the content has been updated. Now, if you go to BritBongLogPost.com, you'll see a picture of John McAfee at the top. And then $WACD, which is his crypto token on the Ethereum blockchain, the WACD crypto token that he came out with a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
also his tattoo.
Yeah, it was a joke coin, though. I mean, wasn't like 1 in 6 tokens that you sent had a chance of just like disappearing off the blockchain?
1 out of 10 actually, or 1/10. Sorry, 1/10, I think, of every transaction is burned.
Yeah, that makes it useless as anything but a joke. I mean, it's just a novelty item.
That's what you would think. Certainly it is a novelty item, but he apparently had a plan with this thing.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
And so if you then go to a different... Okay, well, let me tell you more about what's on BritBong Log Post before I give you the other website. So at BritBong Log Post, you got WACD, and then it says current burn, 288.5 million, the exact number, and then next activation, 300 million. Below that, there are 6 spaces, or 6 sort of entry spaces for a passcode. And how do I know that it's a passcode? Because 2 of the 6 are revealed already. And you can see the characters that are part of this password. Below that is a link that says Vault Access with a little lock next to it. If you click on Vault Access, it takes you to a website called cryptpad.fr. So FR, I believe, is for France. Cryptpad.fr offers encrypted drives, right? So you can buy an account on this site. Anyone can, and you get get some sort of file. You put it up there, and it's encrypted. Okay. And you have to have a password to decrypt it. So 2/6 of John McAfee's CryptPad password have been revealed because enough of the WACD tokens have been burned. The third of the 6 parts will be revealed when 300 million of them are burned.
I am suddenly convinced that John McAfee is alive. He is. Yeah, he was snuck out of that prison and he's living in Indonesia, and this is his latest scheme to pump the value of
the WACD token.
Yeah, because he's, that 1/10 of tokens disappearing, they're probably going straight into his wallet. Yeah.
Well, I would hope that if he was alive, he had gotten snuck out.
That'd be awesome. If you could get out of a prison. I mean, that would be an amazing thing.
No, I'm joking, obviously. I don't think John McAfee is still alive.
Some people do.
That would be right up John McAfee's alley to do something like that.
All right, so on the thread that I was reading, though, they linked to another website called who'sgettingwacd.com. And on this site, it tells you a little bit more about WACD. So it gives you a place where you can go buy WACD on Uniswap. You can view the contract on the Ethereum thing. It says total supply of WACD, over 711 million. So far, 28.8% have been burned. Well, somebody on 4chan did the math, and they figured out that 60% of the WACD supply needs to be burned before all 6 parts of this password are revealed.
How does it get burned exactly?
1/10 of all transaction values are burned.
So anytime you buy something with it?
Anytime anybody sends the WACD from one person to another, 1/10 of it gets sliced off and burned. And 1 out of 1,000 transactions will be burned. So you've got a 1 out of 1,000 chance that your entire transaction will be sent off to the burn address, so to speak.
Sounds like it'd be really easy for people to just send 10 WACD tokens back and forth until they were all gone, and then do that with 10 more.
If you've got 1 million or whatever, you can just send them straight to the burn address and they'll be instantly burned. So you don't have to wait. Like if you're really WACD rich, you can just burn all your WACD if you want to see the code and reveal the secret files.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's ward stones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The White House says vaccination rates are shooting up in the U.S. states that have been hit hardest by a new wave of COVID cases. On average, the country is reporting around 80,000 new coronavirus cases per day, and that's rising fast. Our Washington correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
The White House coronavirus response team is making a clear link between states with the highest numbers of new cases and accelerating vaccination rates. Over the last 3 weeks, Louisiana has seen a 302% increase in the average number of newly vaccinated people per day. Meanwhile, 70% of adults have now had at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine, finally hitting a target the White House originally set for the 4th of July.
The Polish government has granted a humanitarian visa to a Belarusian athlete who refused her team's orders to board a flight home from the Olympic Games. Sprinter Krystyna Simonskaya plans to leave for Poland in the coming days. Lucy Hoff reports.
The 24-year-old sprinter had been due to compete in the women's 200-meter heats on Monday, but on Sunday was taken to Tokyo airport by Belarusian officials to board a flight home after criticizing the way the national team was run. Simonskaya refused and was later driven to the Polish embassy to seek refuge after a formal offer of assistance from the Warsaw government. The European Union welcomed Poland's decision and said the repatriation attempt was further evidence of brutal repression by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko.
The Biden administration is allowing more Afghans who worked for the U.S. government to apply for refugee status in America. It means thousands more Afghans will be eligible for visas as violence by the Taliban escalates. U.S. markets began August on a high note thanks to strong corporate earnings, encouraging U.S. manufacturing data and prospects for the $1 trillion infrastructure spending deal. But that optimism failed to hold the day. Here's Li-Ling Tan from New York.
Here's what Wall Street had going for it this first trading day of August. That $1 trillion infrastructure spending bill that could pass this week, plus a string of better than expected corporate earnings that have propelled equities to new highs. And July's data from the Institute for Supply Management showed strong manufacturing growth for the month. But here's what kept optimism in check. Manufacturing was up, yes, but not as much as the market had expected as raw material shortages and supply chain issues persisted. Also not helping the raging Delta variant that could prolong or bring a return of pandemic restrictions, and China's crackdown on tech companies that has sent shockwaves through global markets, hitting hard at US-listed Chinese firms. At the end of the day, only Nasdaq closed in positive and only by a notch.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Iran's new president, Ibrahim Raisi, will be sworn into office later this week, ushering in a new era of uncertainty in the country's relationship with the West. The head of Iran's judiciary, he won 62% of the vote in June's election, a hardliner with a long track record of condemning thousands of political detainees in Iran to death. He's also mooted as a possible successor to the ailing supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Analyst Bob McMahon is with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations.
He falls firmly into the camp of conservative hardliner. Now, that's sometimes a squishy term as it pertains to Iran, because you could take a whole swath of the Iranian leadership and say they fall into that. The outgoing president, Hassan Rouhani, has been described more as a pragmatist. We're talking about a much different individual coming into the office of president, very much in lockstep with the supreme leader, meaning a more hardline Iran. The desire is to show him acting presidential, acting as a leader, and then being able to elevate him.
The supreme leader at 82 is known to be ailing, although his precise state of health is unclear, but he is expected to keep a keen eye on his protege's performance as president, with many Iranians believing Ibrahim Raisi is being road-tested for that even more powerful role in the future. Tomorrow, we'll take a look at what his ascendancy means for the future of the Iran nuclear deal. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the top news again. The White House says vaccination rates are shooting up in U.S. states hit hardest by a new wave of coronavirus cases. The Polish government has granted a humanitarian visa to a Belarusian athlete who refused orders to board a flight home from the Olympics. And the Biden administration is allowing more Afghans who worked for the U.S. government to apply for refugee status in America. And that's the latest from Feature Story News. Rebecca Foster reporting.
Clark County paramedics responded to a frantic 911 call from a nearby motel this morning, where the Lord our God, divine creator and ruler of the universe, had been found nude and unconscious following his latest suicide attempt. God, who sources say had recently grown far more depressed and withdrawn from humanity than usual, reportedly attempted to hang himself from the base of his motel showerhead after ingesting an unknown quantity of Ambien. Motel sources claim that God's room had been left in a state of disarray, and revealed that they had found a brief note written by the omnipotent deity, saying that the suicide stems from long periods of unhappiness he had been suffering in recent millennia, including the death of his only child, thousands of years of war and genocide, chronic weight gain, and the aftermath of his messy 15,088 BC divorce. Paramedics say the Supreme Being had no pulse when they arrived. The Lord's overdose comes in the wake of several widely publicized previous suicide attempts, including a 1985 incident when the Lord leapt from the Grand Canyon but changed into a bird at the last second and flew to safety.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the third hour of the program. Open phones, as always, if you want to join us here. 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, you've got Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
We're going to go back into your calls and thoughts about what you want. We were just talking about John McAfee and his Dead Man Switch, which has triggered a countdown that expired, 2 weeks ago almost at this point. And now is a website where a password is slowly being revealed to an encrypted file that we don't know what is inside. We don't know the size of the encrypted file either, although the website that offers the storage for these encrypted files seems to have a limit of 1 gigabyte. So it isn't going to be some huge amount of video or something like that.
Terabytes of government.
Yeah, it's no 31 terabytes in here. So unless he's got a special account with these people, it's a French cryptography file storage website.
Which isn't impossible, but it seems unlikely.
Seems unlikely. So we're waiting, though, till 60% of John McAfee's whacked tokens are burned.
And you can send tokens directly to the burn address. And that,
I understand it, yeah.
John McAfee for sure owns that address.
Well, I mean, he put the contract together, so of course.
Yeah.
I mean, presumably the things are actually being burned, but I don't know how you can easily tell that. There's probably some way to count up the total number of tokens in any given system. So, I mean, I don't doubt that the tokens are being burned because
they're going to an address that presumably won't ever use them.
Oh, really? Okay, so I didn't know that if when
they're-
they say burn, I presume that means that they're being deleted, that they're being
I don't know
eliminated
that they
from the
can
system.
be.
It's a contract, so they could. I mean, so with tokens, you
But
can add to
if
them.
that's
Why
the
can't you
case,
burn them?
Why would they need to go to a specific address then for them to be burned?
I don't know.
And wouldn't somebody have to have like control of the address to burn them if they were like going to an address and then being burned?
It's presumably the burning is automatic. It sounds like all three of us are beyond our knowledge of how Ethereum contracts work, and
I hate
don't know
Ethereum,
much.
so I don't want to learn about it.
I don't know much about it. I do know that Ethereum is going into like version 2.0 soon. I think there's an upgrade happening this week.
That's where they're moving to at
Proof of
like
stake.
50% proof of stake.
Yeah. So
Good for them.
Things are going to get complicated. Things could break. Beware. Coming soon.
Well,
I know
that will lower the gas fees on the Ethereum blockchain
we
at
hope.
least.
Yeah, that's I think the big plan there. So where is this going to go, John McAfee? What's coming next? At some point, 60% of these whacked tokens are going to be burned. But how long is it going to take to get there? If it's 1/10 of every transaction gets burned and 1 out of every 1,000 transactions are burned, it may take a long time if there's not a lot of activity on the whacked network. This could take years.
Hold on, 1/10 of every transaction gets burned?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was 1/10 of all transactions got burned.
Well, yes. I mean, of every
Well, I
transaction.
guess by extension, yeah.
But of course, the tenths will get smaller and smaller
But
and
then
smaller.
you have like a chance of your whole transaction getting burned, right?
A 1/1000th of a chance the entire transaction will be sent to the burn address, and your recipient will not receive it at all. So again, with disincentives to spend like that, why would it ever get to 60%? Although it's already to 28%, and I don't know how long that's taken. I guess 2 years or whatever it is since it was founded.
Since Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself.
Oh, that's when that was created?
It was shortly thereafter.
Yeah, all right.
Because McAfee was making the point that, Epstein was whacked.
Yeah, and I think McAfee also said that he would not kill himself if he were in a similar circumstance.
Yeah, that's why McAfee has this tattoo on his arm that says
whacked.
Whacked. It's like $ whacked.
WHACKD, which is the what do they call it? Short code or whatever for the currency or for the token. His wife doesn't believe that he committed suicide. He had spoken to her the same day and had said he was going to call her
She's the one who
back.
matters, in my opinion.
Yeah, he said he was going to call her later. Why would you do that?
Yeah, I really thought that he killed himself until his wife came out with a statement. I was like, oh, maybe he didn't.
And the so-called suicide note, which came out, didn't really read like a suicide note.
No, it was just John rambling about living in the present moment, not have future being an illusion, past being an illusion, and only the present being real.
Somebody who should take that advice is James in Arizona. He really ought to live in the present moment and let the past be the past. But
and enjoy Yosemite.
But he just can't. Go ahead, James. Hello.
Did he give up?
No, he likes to do this where you'll take his call and then he just sits quietly for a while before he actually starts speaking.
He caught you, Ian.
He always does this when you answer his calls, too. Did you notice that if you're screening his call?
No, he just starts railing right into me.
Oh, really? He'll usually sit there for like 5 seconds before he says something. James, are you there? Going once. Going twice. All right, well.
I assume he does it with me because he knows I'm probably not going to put him on the air. Because he usually just calls, and during the screening process, if he can't get through the screening process without dropping expletives, I'm not
won't put him on?
Yeah. It's like you got to prove to me you can at least make it 30 seconds, James, and then I will put you on the air.
Yeah, I don't care if, he always threatens me or whatever whenever I screen his calls. But
yeah, that's irrelevant to
whatever.
me.
It doesn't matter.
He threatened you today when you screened his call.
He didn't really get to the threat. I just kind of put him on hold before he could finish spitting it out. But 603-283-6160 is our number here. So, yeah, if you want to comment on what you think is coming next, my thought is once this whacked thing gets done and the full passcode is revealed to the secret encrypted file, I think it's just going to be whatever the next step is on the goose chase.
I tend to agree.
Yeah, I don't think that that's going to be the big reveal. I think there's going to be something else. And whether there will ever be something at the end of the rainbow that's actually worth getting your hands on, I don't know.
Well, it's also entirely possible that this is just some random internet troll, right? And some random internet troll
pretending to be John McAfee, the ghost of John McAfee,
will create the fourth step, and then someone else will come along and say, "Oh, look, I found this other random URL over here. This is the fifth step, guys."
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing. I don't know where this blog post or BritBongLogPost.com came from. Did John McAfee mention this in a previous tweet? A year ago or something like that? Well, how do people know that this is his website? That's not clear. And I'm not going to pore over pages and pages of 4chan to try to figure out what the past of this thing is. So what makes
me either?
What makes people so sure? I mean, there's probably something out there. At least I would hope there would be that proves that John McAfee has a link to this website and that it's not just some imposter.
4chan is also the home, or it was the home of QAnon, right? That's where the...
Oh, really?
If I recall correctly. Maybe it was 8chan.
Was like Twitter or something.
I think it was 8chan.
Didn't QAnon have like a Twitter account or an Instagram or something like that?
I don't know.
I don't either. I've never been to their,
at any rate,
their website.
4chan has always been a cesspool of trolls. Like, it's one of the worst websites on the internet, right?
But it's also great in a lot of ways because they came up with a lot of great memes.
They did.
Right?
But it's not where I go where I want factual information. If I want to hear, pedantic people argue about the nuances of a subject for, 50,000 threads, this is why Brit Bong Log Post is John McAfee's. I would go to 4chan for that information, but I also don't want to read 50 pages of people arguing about that.
Right.
That's also why I kind of just was waiting for something big to come out, because everything I saw was something like a Reddit or 4chan post that was like, and then I saw this and this and this. It was all stuff that was like starting to go over your head because you're like, why is this? How does he know this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like,
yeah,
I don't
you'd
care
have
anymore.
to be consumed by this.
Yes.
And there are people like that. Thank goodness for him because,
Well, he named his fourth dog Brit, and he wrote a long... No, I don't know.
Oh,
I'm just saying,
yeah. I thought you were serious too. I was like,
the
interesting.
type of connections that these people make, right? And he wrote a long article once.
All right, so changing gears, or sort of.
Oh, wait, one more thing. I was going to say, that's exactly the same with Pizzagate. Like, you have to go to, like, Reddit or 4chan and, like, dig through all this craziness, and you'll feel crazy by the time you're done researching Pizzagate.
Yeah, we did that, actually, on Free
too.
Talk Live. We dug in pretty deep into
I didn't do that.
thing.
I did it on Call to Freedom, though, where there was just this website that, basically, this is the best arguments that the Pizzagate people were able to put together. And as I was
they summed it up.
Yeah, I was like, this is nonsense.
I mean, it's interesting.
It's
weird. It's dark.
There's some strange coincidences.
And there's some really weird, sick posts by some of the, the people behind the Pizzagate restaurant.
Yeah.
Like some really...
Comet Pizza?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
There's all kinds of things that are freaky and...
like stuff that you shouldn't put online. Like kind of level scary stuff.
It's definitely weird.
603-283-6160. But you know what's really scary and what's really happening? A proposal to regulate cryptocurrencies. It's been put forward in Congress, and we can tell you more about that. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. This is Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
Free Talk Live.
What kind of force should I be able to use against a person who tries to prevent me from bringing a guest onto my property?
It depends on if it's a legal citizen, they shouldn't be able to use any.
I don't care about your laws, son. Hey, listen to me. Your politicians are a bunch of liars and thieves. Tell me about your laws now.
Let me finish my statement. Or
I heard about your legals and illegals.
Let him go, Mark. Let him go. Go ahead.
Screaming little liberal, aren't you?
I ain't no liberal.
Let me finish what I'm saying without cutting me off.
I'm not a liberal. You call me a liberal, and we'll be going at it all night long.
Well, that's the impression that you're giving with the statement.
It's because you've never listened.
Now, if I can respond, all of the laws that are set forth in this nation were set forth by the representatives of the people that we put into power.
You mean liars and thieves.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You can dial in here if you want. You can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio with you, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
So we can talk about this new potential regulation that is being introduced apparently by a Democrat.
Are they going after private wallets? Because I know that's in their game plan, but it's got to be pretty far down the pipeline. They can't go after that yet.
I have not read the actual bill, of course, but I do have bullet points from the person who wrote the bill, purportedly, or the person who introduced the bill. They're saying that the critics of this are saying that he didn't have anything to do with the writing of it, that it was...
That's typical, though.
Yeah. It was the regulatory agencies, basically, that are putting this forward.
Is that like a theory, or is that...
It's a theory.
Absolutely true?
No, it's a theory.
When they say regulatory agencies, do they mean like FinCEN, or do they mean the secret cabal
like the Treasury
that is Coinbase and Kraken?
No, like the Treasury.
Okay.
The government gang themselves. So we can get into that coming up here. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. But first, we're going to go to your calls and thoughts. Olivia is on the line in Arizona. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Before I get to my topic, I just wanted to ask when Nobody's court appearance was going to be, because I wanted to write to him, but if he's not going to be in jail, I guess I won't.
Okay, his most recent appearance was not this past Friday, but the Friday before this last Friday.
He's not scheduled another.
Correct. So at this time, what we're waiting on is the judge in the case to make a decision on what was presented at that hearing and the subsequent memorandums of law that were submitted by both sides. Those were submitted last week, with the defense submitting theirs on Friday. Today, the judge in the case did file a notice into the case file saying that he has read the filings from the attorneys.
Is that what that meant?
Yes, that's my understanding of that. So at this point, at least we know that he has taken the information in, and now we're just waiting on the ruling. So it's possible that nobody could be really. Our co-host, for the listeners that don't know, who's in jail, he's one of the Crypto Six, one of the 6 people that included me and Aria that were arrested on March 16th this year and charged with a bunch of BS by the federal government. That he may be released. He's the final person to be held. May be released. I'm optimistic, I have to say, after that hearing.
I think so, especially given that the judge expressed that he wasn't really concerned about the recordings. He's heard worse, and that was what the prosecutors focused on entirely.
And it's what the magistrate judge focused on as well.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a chance of getting out. Now, of course, if the judge does rule that he can be released, then it will have a bunch of terms associated with it, which may include bail. Mine did. Yours, did you get PR? Did you have to post
I got PR.
Yeah. So mine had a $200,000 cash bail. So we don't know if they're going to put cash terms on him too. And then what else they're going to require. The judge did suggest during the hearing that he may be prohibited from being on Free Talk Live, which sounds like a violation of his right to freedom of speech. But again, we don't know yet what it's going to be.
Well, hoping for the best. I wanted Aria and Bonnie's input on this because I found yet another reason why government's just such a broken system.
Before you go on, Olivia, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just so he's not going to be out by the end of this week. I mean, just because the federal system, even if he gets, quote unquote, released with terms tomorrow, he's still going to meet the terms. He's probably going to turn in a passport. He's going to pay the cash bail. There's steps that have to go through.
I don't think they'll require. I mean, personally, I don't think they'll require cash bail from him
because he's not the ringleader, allegedly.
No comment. I just don't think they will. And I think he said his passport is expired, so I don't think they would require. So, well, if they order his release, he could very well be out that night.
It could happen that soon, but I wouldn't count on it. It's the federal government. These things, they go slow. So I would say if you feel like writing to him, go ahead and write to him. And the worst case is it'll bounce back to you and you'll get it back. Like if he's not there, if he's left the jail by the time your letter gets there, it'll just be sent back to you. And then you can still send it to him afterwards. You can just send it to him at his new house,
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
And for listeners that don't know, you can go to thecrypto6.com and the address for Nobody is there on that page. Or I think you have to click on a thing, but it's easy to find.
So you had a question for me and Bonnie?
So go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, so usually a lot of times lobbyists write laws, but it's not any really better when regular people write laws. And an example I found on this was from purewow.com. It was the title is "I Had a Stroke at 36. Here's What I Want All Women to Know" by Jessica Diaz. Now, she took the birth control pill safely for 20 years, and now she wants to make sure that other women in Massachusetts have to take a blood test before they're allowed to get birth control, because birth control can cause clots. If you are one of the 5 to 8% of people who have a rare genetic blood mutation that causes your blood to clot, which she never mentions that if you get pregnant or get dehydrated, well, actually she does mention pregnancy and dehydration can cause you to get blood clots, but no, she wants to put a barrier up to birth control. So, but she doesn't.
Is it really a risk to 5 to 8% of the population?
Well, okay. Do you mind if I give you some details of the story first?
Sure.
So she stepped into the shower one day and she had all the signs of stroke. She had a huge headache all of a sudden, numbness on one side. She couldn't move on one side. So after waiting a while, she finally called her doctor. The doctor said, call 911 immediately. Well, she didn't. So number one, she doesn't even follow her doctor's directions. But eventually they took her to the hospital and they found that she had a blood clot that was made worse because she was one of 25% of people who have a tiny hole in their heart. And like when you're a baby, you have a tiny hole in your heart that closes up. Well, for 25% of people, that doesn't happen. And then she also, on top of that, had a rare gene mutation called factor V Leiden that's in 5 to 8% of people. So when she got pregnant, because she has 2 kids, that they think that's when that triggered that gene mutation, and it caused her to get blood clots later on, probably from the birth control. So
But she wasn't really on birth control when she got pregnant, right?
No, she went back on it afterwards. She had like young kids, and that's when her stroke happened. So she has all these special factors, and because of that, and she said the doctor never told her that you could get blood clots. Which, when I went on birth control, the doctor said this multiple times. It's in every packet of the pill. Every packet, it says all over there, don't smoke, you could get blood clots, here's some risk factors. We don't know if it causes breast cancer, but we don't think so.
That's true of all medicines. They all include those informational packets, and people just throw them away.
Yep.
Right.
Vaccines.
She didn't even read the literature, and now she wants to make a bill that puts up a barrier to getting birth control, which pregnancy can cause clots and all kinds of diabetes and all kinds of horrific things to your body too. But she wants to make you get a blood test first because she had all these weird genetic mutations, these rare genetic mutations.
Well, 25% of the population I wouldn't characterize as rare.
But then she had something else on top of it.
Yeah, which affects 5 to 8% of the population. So that's still a good 2%, 2 to 4% of the population.
But who cares? She wants to mandate some sort of test before you can get birth control?
Yeah,
if it's such a good
I'm just saying
idea,
it doesn't sound like it's that rare.
If the test is such a good idea, people should voluntarily tell their doctor, I want to get this test before I get birth control, because they should be smart about it.
But she should have called the doctor when she, exhibited the signs of a stroke.
But you said she's from Massachusetts, right, Olivia?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty much there. I mean, that's all you need to know about this person. I mean, thank you for the call, Olivia. These people in Massachusetts, they are a bunch of goody-goody know-it-alls, tell you what to do, tell you how to live your life. It's a good place not to be living. More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Rebecca Foster. The White House says vaccination rates are shooting up in the U.S. states that have been hit hardest by a new wave of COVID cases. On average, the country is reporting around 80,000 new coronavirus cases per day, and that's rising fast. Our Washington correspondent Giles Gibson reports.
The White House coronavirus response team is making a clear link between states with the highest numbers of new cases and accelerating vaccination rates. Over the last 3 weeks, Louisiana has seen a 302% increase in the average number of newly vaccinated people per day. Meanwhile, 70% of adults have now had at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine, finally hitting a target the White House originally set for the 4th of July.
The Polish government has granted a humanitarian visa to a Belarusian athlete who refused her team's orders to board a flight home from the Olympic Games. Sprinter Krystyna Simonskaya plans to leave for Poland in the coming days. Lucy Hoff reports.
The 24-year-old sprinter had been due to compete in the women's 200-metre heats on Monday, but on Sunday was taken to Tokyo airport by Belarusian officials to board a flight home after criticising the way the national team was run. Simonskaya refused and was later driven to the Polish embassy to seek refuge after a formal offer of assistance from the Warsaw government. The European Union welcomed Poland's decision and said the repatriation attempt was further evidence of brutal repression by Belarusian Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko.
The Biden administration is allowing more Afghans who worked for the U.S. government to apply for refugee status in America. It means thousands more Afghans will be eligible for visas as violence by the Taliban escalates. U.S. markets began August on a high note thanks to strong corporate earnings, encouraging U.S. manufacturing data and prospects for the $1 trillion infrastructure spending deal. But that optimism failed to hold the day. Here's Li-Ling Tan from New York.
Here's what Wall Street had going for it this first trading day of August. That $1 trillion infrastructure spending bill that could pass this week, plus a string of better than expected corporate earnings that have propelled equities to new highs. And July's data from the Institute for Supply Management showed strong manufacturing growth for the month. But here's what kept optimism in check. Manufacturing was up, yes, but not as much as the market had expected as raw material shortages and supply chain issues persisted. Also not helping the raging Delta variant that could prolong or bring a return of pandemic restrictions, and China's crackdown on tech companies that has sent shockwaves through global markets, hitting hard at U.S.-listed Chinese firms. At the end of the day, only Nasdaq closed in positive and only by a notch.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can bring up what you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Bonnie, and Aria in the studio here tonight. And by the way, I want you to check out our Odyssey channel. And if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button or the follow. I think it's called following, actually, on Odyssey. If you go to our channel, you can visit it at video.freetalklive.com. What is Odyssey? Well, it is LBRY's answer to YouTube. LBRY is something we've been talking about on and off over the last several years here on Free Talk Live. I think we got in back in like 2017. We're one of the earliest parts, I guess you could say, one of the earliest channels on LBRY. We don't have that many subscribers, but we've been there for a long time. And, we're nowhere near as big as, these teenagers on TikTok because, we talk about actually, important things and ideas.
I also feel like we don't put as much effort into promoting our channels. They probably, use tags and all this stuff.
You think making more tags would help?
I just feel like they probably sit around obsessing all day about how to promote their channel.
Oh, the TikTokers do?
Well, they hire these marketing firms to do it for them, right?
That's true. That's true. But anyway. You can go there, subscribe to our channel, video.freetalklive.com. It is a uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol. That's what LBRY is. You can learn more about LBRY at lbry.com. That's sort of the guts that is behind the scenes of Odyssey. Odyssey is the front-end website that's pretty, it's nice to look at, and it's designed to compete with YouTube and give people a place where they can put their content without fear of it being censored, which I'm very, very excited about, and I'm a huge fan of what they've been doing over there, and they've gotten now, I think, over 1 million channels on the Odyssey platform, which is incredible level of success. So I'm proud to be over there on Odyssey, and we can't be touched. There's no government agency. If the government comes to the Odyssey people and says, take this down, they're going to say, sorry, we can't do that. The system doesn't work that way. Even if the company is shut down by the government, the software and the network still exists.
Yep.
So the SEC is targeting them.
I've loved LBRY for a long time. I had no idea that its creator even lived in New Hampshire until I'd been here for like a year. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, and he actually stood up to the police and got arrested a few years ago in Manchester. I don't know if you ever saw that video.
That was when I learned that he lived in New Hampshire.
Yeah. Yes.
For what?
The Manchester cops had locked down his neighborhood because of apparently what was allegedly a murder that had happened in one house or whatever. And so because of that, they locked the place down, and he was like, I need to go pick up my kid from preschool or whatever. And the cop said, no, you can't leave. And Jeremy was going to leave anyway, and so the cop went and arrested him.
Well, what happened to his kid? What the heck?
Well, I think that he managed to call somebody else or something from somewhere else in town and get them to go pick his kid up. But
yeah, that's just proof that the cops don't actually care about people at all.
Right. So he got arrested, and kudos to him. So not only is he a great technological activist, but he's actually got some cojones as well. So well-rounded, awesome. I guess you could say. Speaking of great New Hampshire-based activists, Dave Ridley is on the line here from RidleyReport.com. Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. You remember that that viral video of Concord police trying to stop kids from playing in the playground in New Hampshire?
Yes, this was back in April of last year, right? Just a few weeks into the COVID restrictions and such, and government bureaucracies all over the place, and even here in the so-called Live Free or Die state, had done things like tape off playgrounds to try to prevent kids from having any fun during the so-called pandemic. And a mother and I think a couple of friends or whatever had gone out with their kids and were letting their kids play on the playground. And
the horror.
Someone called the police, and the cops showed up, and the cops threatened them, and the parents basically laughed them off the playground. The cops went away kind of with their tail between their legs. And the video came out. Of course, all the vaccine people were, really angry.
Well, this was before the vaccine, so it was just the pro-mask people.
The maskers, yeah. The mask people were super angry about it because they weren't respectful of the police.
They coughed at them.
Yeah, one of them did cough towards the general direction of the cops. It was pretty entertaining. But then, 6 months later, or 5 or 6 months later, the cops showed up individually at the parents' houses and arrested them.
All of them? I thought it was just this one lady.
No, it was more than one of them. Yep. As I understand it.
I have an update on one of the arrestees, Rochelle Kelly, who I believe holds a town office somewhere in New Hampshire. I don't
She's
know
a school board member in the town of Ware, as I understand it.
Okay. So she was arrested again about 2 weeks ago, I think. And this time it was unrelated. It was maybe unrelated. It was a registration issue with her vehicle, and when they pulled her over, she objected to the fact that they were opening her doors. I guess she was out of the vehicle. They kept opening the doors and kind of looking in the car and stuff with the door open. And she considered that a search without a warrant, which she thought was illegal. I don't know if it is with vehicles. But she objected and walked toward the policeman who was opening the door. And she got about 15 seconds warning that she was about to be arrested. They started talking about arresting her, and she wouldn't back away, so they arrested her.
Oof. Yeah, I'd heard about this as shortly after, I guess, it had gone down. She's in some of the activist chat rooms up here on Telegram, and I'm not on Telegram, but Bonnie, you were monitoring the situation as it was going on, and you had told me about it when it was happening.
I like the courage on this woman.
She is ballsy. Did she get video, Dave?
Yes, I'm telling you what I saw in the video. So she was videotaping initially, and as soon as she got arrested, she had the presence of mind to just hand the camera to her husband, who managed to do a pretty good job of documenting the scene after that.
Oh, it's great.
She didn't handle herself ideally. She did a lot of screaming, but it wasn't, obviously sometimes when a woman screams, you want to run for help. This is the kind of screaming that makes you want to run away. So it would have been better if she had not done that.
Well, these people were threatening to kidnap her.
And they were.
Yeah, again, there's a way to do this that's ideal and a way that's not. And she was, insulting the cops quite a bit, and the average person watching this will not warm to her very much.
So, what is the best way to do it, in your opinion, Dave? How would you have done it differently?
Well, I think there is a place to draw attention to you where you are. And someone once said that I guess there was a French Revolution victim who, after all these different people were being hanged, and guillotined, and they were all going to their deaths with great dignity, and so no one cared until a woman actually started screaming, right? She was being taken to the guillotine. So maybe there is a place for it. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly how it works. I can just tell you what my reaction was from watching it. It was kind of like, okay, she's in the right. They shouldn't have the right to do this, but the average person is not going to be won over by this video.
Well, I don't know if the average person is going to be won over by, videos that are critical of the police state. It seems like the average person loves to have a government master telling them what to do.
Well, I don't know about that.
Look at COVID, Dave. I mean, people have been eating up being told what to do, and they hate it when people don't do what they're told.
I think what's important is you want to get the people who are on the fence on your side. And there are a lot of people who are not automatically supportive of the government, and that's actually fairly common. It's just that, they have control of the media, they have control over themselves and the nukes and the guns for the most part, and they're going to make it look like everyone likes them more than they really do like them.
Bonnie, did you see this video?
No, I was actually going to ask Dave, did she ever get the body cam footage? I heard something about that she got body cam footage without audio.
Okay, I haven't heard anything about that.
Well, I'm glad to hear there's video. There's so many times when something happens and we ask the question, did you get video? And the supposed activist says no. It's like, thank goodness they got video of this one.
Is she free, Dave?
Oh, yeah, I think this was 2 weeks ago. I don't think she's still in jail or anything.
Well, she's got coming up, I believe, in September, the trial for her arrest last year. So that's on the way, and I'm hoping to get the time off to go, from my federal masters to go and actually attend the hearing. More coming up. Free Talk Live.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You know, it really sucks not being able to be on Telegram. That's one of my bail restrictions.
It does, man.
Because that's where a lot of the activism, like conversations, go on up here in New Hampshire. It's been that way in the Keene area for like the last decade now. So, I mean, we've been using it for a long time, and it's now like caught on to even more folks in New Hampshire. I know that PorcFest officially adopted it as the official chat room for the Porcupine Freedom Festival this year. So that
Did they?
Yeah, it was cool to find out about.
It was nice of them to follow our example.
Yeah, exactly. You mean ForkFest's example? Yeah. So, Bonnie, you just pulled the video up of Rochelle Kelly being arrested on the side of the road. She is the mom who was arrested after her kids were playing on a playground last year in Concord, New Hampshire. And Dave Ridley had just called in to give us the heads up that this video existed. You knew she was arrested because she was talking on the Telegram chat about that shortly after she was arrested, I think.
Yeah, but I had heard them talking about like issues getting the body cam footage, so I didn't know there was video until now. I guess I kind of skipped over that. Sometimes I see like 40
There's a lot
messages
of chat.
and
Well, didn't she have her own video?
Yeah, that was her own video that I just played.
Yeah, so you just played this. We can't play it for you on the air because, number one, we don't have it on the studio computer, and number two, there are some profanities in it, so we'd have to take the time to edit it first. But just to sum it up, it's a fairly short clip. It starts with her, they're outside of their van, and they're already being detained by the police, and then the cops start to search her van, and she yells like, "Hey, you can't do that. You know, you don't have my permission to search." And
yes, they do have to have a warrant to search your vehicle.
Or
as I
your
understand
permission,
it.
one or the other. And they didn't show her a warrant, and they didn't, arrest her. Like, if she's under arrest, then they can search the vehicle.
She wasn't under arrest at
but
the
she
beginning
wasn't
of the
under
video.
arrest at that point. Yeah. So, if they're like, for instance, if they're impounding your vehicle, they have the right to search it at that point. As I understand, I'm not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice, but that's my understanding. So she approaches the car, and she continues to yell that, "Hey, you don't have a right. This is my private property or whatever. You don't have a right to search it."
She's saying, "Stop looking in my vehicle now and shut the door now," and they're just standing there continuing to do it.
So she goes ahead and closes the door, and almost immediately, like there's no warning at this point. It's not like she had a few seconds or whatever where she was warned where she could step back. Immediately, the cop says, "You're under arrest," and just moves in
for
to put
protecting her private property from a warrantless search.
Yeah, and he says, "You're under arrest." She's like, "What for?" As he's manhandling her, and she is loud and she is screaming at some points in the video.
As she's being manhandled.
As she's being, absolutely.
Completely violated. This is all happening because of a violation of her privacy.
Yeah, the entire thing
her
is arguably illegal and a total violation, as you said, of her rights. I don't agree with Ridley here. I don't think, because he called in to criticize her for being loud, basically, and yelling and cursing during this encounter. And I don't agree. I think that when you are having your rights violated, I don't think it's wrong to yell about it.
And
I really don't.
I disagree that the average person watching that would be like, "Oh, she should stop yelling." I think the average person watching that would be like, "Wow, what's wrong with these sickos?"
I think you're going to get a range of reactions.
I understand that there are people that will be like, "She should have stopped resisting," but I really don't think that's the average person I know anymore.
I don't know.
My parents are conservatives, and I don't think that they'd be like, "She should have just stopped resisting."
See, I don't know. And I don't know if how her behavior came into play would really make that much of a difference in people's minds. Because I think there's the people that are going to believe whatever the cops say. There's the people that are going to take her side no matter what she does because, you know, they know the cops are bad news and are likely to be a bunch of liars and you can't trust a word that they say. And then, like Dave Ridley put it, there are going to be the fence sitters. There are going to be the people that are going to make their mind up based on what they see in the content of the video. But if you are being molested by somebody, if they are destroying your rights, if they are violating you, if they're hurting you, and they, according to her in the video, were
she said
hurting
they were cutting her with the handcuffs.
They don't put them on gently.
No.
I was yelling at the cops a lot worse than that when I got the disorderly conduct charge. I think that she wasn't yelling in a way that was just crazy. Like, she didn't seem like...
Yeah, no, she wasn't just, like, hollering at the top of her lungs.
Yeah.
She was saying things very specific about her rights being violated. You're hurting me. You're cutting off my circulation. You know, things like that.
She did call him a gay slur.
Oh, did she? I missed that.
I did, too. I hate I missed that.
But, you know, it doesn't bother me.
I advocate calling police officers that.
At the same time, I do understand where Ridley's coming from. I mean, certainly, if you remain calm in a situation like that, you can probably more effectively communicate, whatever ideas that you have. But she did effectively communicate that she was being hurt because the cops did seem to back off a little bit. Like, she said, hey, the cop says, stop resisting. You know,
calm down and stop resisting, and then we'll loosen your handcuffs we're cutting you with for no reason.
And she did say, all right, I'm not resisting, now loosen the
cuffs. And I'm calming down and stuff like that.
And they did, maybe, it appeared, loosen the cuffs. We had to go back on the air at that point in the video. So I'm hoping that we can download this and get it up on Free Keen, because like I said, I hadn't seen this either.
This is also an issue I have with the real Gandhi. The real Gandhi says, like, it's like, you know, anti-peaceful protesting and resistance or whatever to cuss when you're doing it, and I just think that's so dumb. Words don't hurt people, and she can say whatever she wants to these police officers. Ultimately, they're the ones with the guns infringing on her rights.
The real Gandhi said that swearing was bad?
Yeah, and I was so annoyed with that.
Why?
He didn't really explain it very well to me. He was just saying that it was bad because it's offensive to people.
Well, he was also against having sex and, you know, things like that. So
sure.
We don't agree with everything necessarily that Gandhi stood for.
I'm just curious what his reasoning would be. I mean, obviously he doesn't know what we know now, which is that, you know, generally the ability to swear indicates a higher intelligence, and it certainly helps reduce pain levels and stress levels.
That's a good point.
Gandhi didn't know any of that. So, I mean, yelling and screaming profanity in a strange way will help to calm a person down.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not so concerned with what the average person thinks about this. You know, when I see an activist video, I want to know what the activists think about it, because ultimately I want to attract more of them here to New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And I think that was an interesting video. I mean, it could have been better. I mean, my critique was she wasn't pointing the camera in the right place. and that's a tough thing to do, you know, if you're under a stressful situation, you're upset. The last thing you're thinking about necessarily is, am I getting a good shot of this person who's violating my rights? But if you're not, then you don't get to see what the cop looks like. And so actually, to her husband's credit, when he's being handed the camera, so she passes off the camera to him as she's being arrested, which
smart,
is always a good move.
Smart, because then the police can't take it.
Correct. Although they could, like if they'd wanted to, like the cops could have been like, hand that over, that's evidence. And he would have had to have given it to him.
Evidence of what?
Of this whole situation, basically. So they could have.
That's why you live stream to Odyssey.
Well, but if they can do that, then they can do that with anyone who records any police interaction. They can just confiscate the video.
And they've done that in some places. Now, I don't think I've seen that up here in New Hampshire at all, maybe in the past, but I've seen other police departments pull that one.
Wow.
Yeah,
they have guns and Bearcats.
Yeah, they'll just go and confiscate cameras from anybody who's around claiming that it's evidence of the crime.
That's despicable.
Yeah, it is.
I'm not surprised to hear it, but I am disappointed to hear it.
So she passes the camera off to her husband. He gets a good, wide shot showing what's exactly happening, showing both of the officers very clearly. So that's the one thing I would recommend. If you're in a situation like that, do try to be cognizant of where you're pointing the camera. It's something that it's a big critique of mine of another Cop Block guy, not Cop Block, but JP from the Cop Chasers, I think he calls it here. He's always pointing the camera at the ground. It's like, man, you're ballsy enough to get right up to the cop and, get in, within their near vicinity. Go all the way and point the camera at him. Let's see what this guy looks like. We want to know what what they're doing. So just try to remember that when you're getting in these situations. I definitely do want to follow the Rochelle Kelly cases as closely as I can, even though I'm restricted on house arrest. I'd love to be able to actually go to her trial, where they're going to try to put her in jail for 2 years for having her kids playing on the playground.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's facing 2 Class A misdemeanor counts, the last I heard. And that's 1 year in jail for each of those counts. Now, maybe they'll run concurrent, but...
What is the reason for that? Is that just like because they went beyond like the barriers that were set up by the state? Like, what are they exactly saying she did?
I think it's a disorderly conduct charge, but I'm not
Oh, so
But
it's
she wasn't the disorderly one. The police who came along interrupting their peaceful afternoon playing at the park were the disorderly ones.
Absolutely. And she does have a Free Stater who's an attorney, and he's pretty good. He's the guy that did the topless ladies charges a few years ago here in New Hampshire. His name's Dan Hines. So it'll be an interesting case, that's for sure, and I'm looking forward to it.
I hope it turns out well for her.
Yeah, so...
I would not want to be the New Hampshire judge who throws the mother in prison for 2 years for letting her kids play in the park.
Well, if she's found guilty, she may not get sentenced to jail. It may be one of those things where she just, sentenced to a fine or something like that, in which case I hope she doesn't pay the fine. Because if you pay fines to these people, it just encourages them. So stop doing that. Out of time for tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night. Online in the meantime, you can join us at freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values?